Good morning from Ohio Stadium, home of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And today, Tony, temporary home verbo of the Michigan Wolverines. Their truck's right behind us there. They're here, so we're already doing better than we were in 2020. Yeah. Michigan is here, and there's a game to be played in Columbus today between number 2 Ohio State, number 3 Michigan. Are you looking forward to it?
I am looking forward to it. I would tell Kevin, get the bleeps ready. I am ready for this one. I'm excited. It's been a year in the making. Of course, we look forward to this every single year, and it rarely fails to deliver. One way or another, something comes out of this that sets the tone for the next year.
Yeah, and this is a game that's got a lot on the line. You know, setting the tone for the next year, check. Setting the tone potentially for the Ohio State football program for the next year and beyond, one way or the other, check. Big Ten East title on the line, check. Almost certain. I mean, this is probably a play-in game for the college football playoff, right? I mean, you could win this game and then lose to Purdue or Illinois or Iowa, whoever it ends up being next week, and you're probably still making it. There's probably a college football playoff play-in game, national championship contention, stepping stone. I mean, there's a lot on the line here. I guess let's start with what this means for the program on the whole. I mean, because this is a thing where you can, if Ohio State wins, it's sort of business as usual and everything marches on for another year. If Ohio State loses, this feels like this could be a pretty consequential game for the future of Ryan Day, the program, because no one is suggesting he's going to be fired if he loses this game. But just in terms of setting up the next year, the narrative around the program, in the same way you had toughness questions this year, if Michigan beats them again, then you're having all sorts of real uncomfortable questions for the next 12 months, and there's nothing you can do between now and then other than, sneak into the playoff and win the national championship somehow. Unless you do that, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do until you get this chance again in 12 months.
Yeah, and we've seen how quickly Michigan has turned the narrative, even though they've lost so many in a row. And then you win one, and that's all it takes. But you still have to win that one. Mm-hmm. And right now, Ohio State hasn't done it since 2019. And to lose a second game in a row to Michigan for the first time since 99 and 2000, that's been so long. That's a generation. So it's like, how do you process this? How do you handle this? How do you fix this? Especially when you think you've done everything to fix what happened last year. And then for something else to happen again, how do you come back from that? How do you approach that? How do you deal with that? And just in terms of, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but C.J. Stroud, you can't be a starting quarterback and go 0 for 2 at Ohio State and be considered some all-time great. And that's not fair to him because he was really good last year. But there's a lot riding. We didn't even talk about his legacy. There's a lot riding on a lot of people. Every single stake that could be involved is involved in this game.
Yeah, you go back. The last quarterback to go 0-2 as a starter against Michigan was Steve Pelissari, and you think about how he's remembered in Columbus, and that is a very, very different thing from how a lot of the quarterbacks since then have been remembered in Columbus, and a lot of that goes back to beating Michigan. Troy Smith was, even before he won the Heisman, Troy Smith was elevated to a level you hadn't seen. You heard the tippy die stat when Troy Smith was in Columbus, because can you imagine an Ohio State quarterback beating Michigan 3 times? Now that seems almost like a given, but back then it was, tippy die in 1935 to 37 or whatever it was. And he was the first one since then to beat Michigan 3 times. That's now sort of the norm. You don't want, you as Ohio State, you as C.J. Stroud, you as Ryan Day, don't want to go back to the other thing being the norm. If you do have a loss here, you start, the toughness thing, you start getting into, okay, what's Mickey Marotti's, how does this change the view of Mickey Marotti, who is, viewed as the key, this crucial piece of the program right now. If you lose again, then you have people asking all sorts of questions. Is Day the right guy? Was Day really born on third base? All that stuff. I am so fascinated. The third base thing is going to be a talking point after this game, one way or the other, and it is going to be really fascinating to see how that all shakes out. Probably not.
Oh wait!
What do you say?
OH! OH! IO! IO! Michigan!
Oh, yeah. There.
Okay.
This is for children.
Yeah. All right.
You're not supposed to say. You're not supposed to say Michigan.
OSU!
There you go.
The team up north will not succeed today.
Thank you. You guys have a good one. Good luck to you all.
You should do that, Les.
Yeah. Anyway, you see the M1 Moral Towers knocked out, X'd out. We were talking about legacies and toughness, and if Ohio State loses, but loses in a close fashion, and I know people are like, why are you always talking about Ohio State losing? They can lose this and have the answer the toughness question.
Yes. Yeah. That's this is a game where you have the toughness thing. If Ohio State's running over Michigan and Michigan is not able to run the ball in Ohio State, I mean, I don't know how Michigan wins the game without being able to do that.
Yeah.
To do that, so it feels like if Ohio State beats Michigan, they kind of have answered that question probably. And you go back to this is something that we talked to Ross Fulton about yesterday during our live show. You go back to last year, it wasn't like Michigan was hitting them for 4 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, move the chains, 4 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, move the chains. Last year was a lot more like the 2018 Maryland game, where it was just Michigan does something schematic, and Ohio State, you can just up in the press box see Matt Barnes with just the question marks and exclamation points coming out of his ears and over his head. Just that was kind of they got out coached and out schemed. They got pushed around too when the offensive line got dominated and all that kind of stuff. So there is, the toughness thing is not, just completely fabricated, but also this is not a Michigan team that was just methodically marching the ball 18 plays. They were averaging, I think, 11.3 yards per play or something crazy like that after halftime or in the last 7 drives of the game, or whatever it was. So yeah, it is going to be an interesting statement game for Ohio State. And the interesting thing about Ohio State in this kind of spot is you go back over the years, and the game after they lose a game, the next time they play that team, they are generally pretty thorough in finishing the job.
Yeah, and I wrote about this in terms of just Ryan Day has had this opportunity 3 times to avenge a loss that he has been a part of, and he's 3-0, and has won those games by an average margin of 54-23. That's the avenging the Iowa loss in 2017. They did that this year. Avenging the Purdue loss in 2018. They did that last year. And then, of course, the Clemson loss in 2019. They did that in 2020. All of those were blowouts, including that Clemson game in the playoffs. And the last 19 times Ohio State has played a Big Ten opponent with the opportunity to avenge a loss, Ohio State is 19-0, which is a pretty ridiculous stat and goes back to 2003, 2004, where they especially in the 2004, losing so many as they did, the next time they would play those teams in 2005 and 2006, they would put the hammer on them. But it's been since 2003 and 2004 since Ohio State has lost back-to-back games against a Big Ten opponent, and that was Wisconsin.
And the last time Michigan won here was 2000. The last time Michigan won back-to-back games against Ohio State was 99, 2000. Tony, that was so long ago. How long was it?
How long was it, Tom?
It was so long ago that I was covering this game as an Ohio State student and the sports editor of the Lantern. So,
and you're old now.
I am. Yes, I am waking up and groaning as I wake up and get out of bed in the morning. So yes, it is. That has been a hot minute since I was the I wasn't the drunk person at 6 in the morning.
Kegs and eggs back then.
It was working the game tends to limit your kegs and eggs time.
Not for everybody.
Well.
We won't say any names. There have been some questions about how many Michigan players were even alive the last time Michigan won 2 in a row, and it's going to be very few.
Yeah, I mean, 22. You have to be 22 years old, and that's going to be it. That honestly, you're getting into this same number of Michigan players who have played in the stadium before, which is, you said Jake Moody and
Ronnie Bell,
and that's it. 2 Michigan players who have played in the stadium before, and we have talked a bunch this year about teams and how, it feels like there are a lot of teams that are losing on the road, and it's teams that are just not prepared to go into hostile atmospheres. Because even if you're a junior, you didn't play in a hostile atmosphere 2 years ago. And last year, I mean, how many, like Michigan, what's the most hostile atmosphere Michigan's played in? They played in State College last year. That was a day game.
Right.
So, they haven't had Michigan has not played the Penn State whiteout game. Michigan has not gone to Notre Dame the last couple of years. Michigan has not played, have they played at Camp Randall? Did they play at Camp Randall last year?
I don't remember where that game was last year.
Yeah,
they ran through
it. Might have been. I think that might have been at Camp Randall. Camp Randall could be hostile, but that was a day game as well.
And Wisconsin was not great last year.
Yeah, and then that was a day game as well. This is unquestionably, Michigan has not played. They played all their non-conference games at home this year. They have not had to go on the road to a hostile environment. I'm anticipating this is going to be, on the hostile environment level, where one is the Arkansas State game, and 12 is, the elevator doors and the Shining opening and blood coming out. This seems like this is going to be about an 11 and a half today.
And it should be. The most hostile environment Michigan's played at this year, I think, is Iowa. And, of course, Nebraska went in there yesterday and took it to Iowa a little bit. But just driving in here at 6:30 in the morning, sidewalks were all lined up with people standing outside of bars, trying to get into bars. And this is the first time that Ohio State fans have had, you've had an entire class of students not be able to take part in this game, which is crazy to me. And only 9 current Buckeyes have played against Michigan in this stadium. And so there's going to be just this release, the anticipation of the release. And if Ohio State starts out fast, I mean, that's going to carry them. That's going to go all the way through it. The worst part is if Ohio State starts out slow, Michigan starts out fast, and then you have this silence that has to kind of build.
Yeah. And, you have been in that stadium when things have started well. I mean, 2004, that was Ohio State fans came in not knowing what to expect. You hit the big play down to Anthony Gonzalez on the first drive, touchdown, the place goes nuts, and then that kind of snowballed for Michigan all day. You have also, if you were old enough to remember the John Cooper era, you remember the other times in the stadium where it is what Sir Alex Ferguson called squeaky bum time, where everyone gets a little puckered and everyone gets a little nervous, and you get that sort of nervous silence, or, is nervous silence worse than booing? It might be. It's and it feels like Ohio State getting off to a fast start today is important for that reason. Keep the crowd in it, keep things hostile. But also, it's important because Michigan does not seem like a team that's going to be great at playing from behind. And if you get up a couple scores on Michigan, again, that's where things maybe snowball, because Harbaugh has to play to win this game. You can't just, we're going to just kind of keep pounding the rock and see if the rock breaks at some point. Because if you're down 14-3, you're in danger of getting run out of the building.
Yeah, and we've seen Michigan be a second half team and play even for the first half. This game has been even at the half for just one score games for most of the last 2 decades, honestly. And so if Ohio State can get out to that fast start, one, it shakes off the nerves. And there's this balance of you've put so much focus on this game. It's so important. It's the most important thing in the world right now. How do you not be a little tight to start? You have to find that balance of the anticipation and the importance without being tight, and finding out just timing it right into when you unleash everything. And Urban Meyer used to say that you can't win a game at 10 in the morning or whatever. You can't win a bowl game in December, at practice. And so if they can start quickly, and that's what they're going to do, that's what they're going to shoot to do. I still think you defer though. If you win a toss, don't give me the ball just yet, because we've got this. You don't want to give the opponent back-to-back possessions in the second and third quarter. But if they can get a 3 and out, something like that initially, and then that gets some momentum going. Even if the offense stalls, you've already taken one possession from Michigan.
Well, and also you give the crowd a chance to get into it right away. If you get the ball to start the game, then the crowd that's been going nuts through pregame then has to get real quiet so you can run your offense. If Michigan gets the ball first, the crowd can be as loud as they want to, and that's actually a good thing. That is a bug, or a feature, not a bug. Let's talk a little bit about the weather. You have been doing Panda Watch for the last 2 weeks or so, and this is about a 99th percentile outcome for Ohio State today. I was walking in thinking this is like a reverse Rose Bowl day where the Rose Bowl starts with it's sunny and in the mid 50s and a blue sky and it's perfect. And then by the end of the day, it's dark and, they're in the trophy presentation and you're on the field and it's like, ooh, it's a little chilly. It's like, how is it 38 degrees in Pasadena? This is, walking in, it was like, ooh, it's a little chilly. It's 38 degrees. By kickoff time, it's going to be 47, sun. By the end of the game, you're talking mid 50s, no wind. This is a day that if this happened on October 23rd or October 26th instead of November 26th, you would go, oh, what a great day for football. What perfect sweatshirt weather. This is, you go through all the games we've been through the last couple of weeks, getting blown off our feet in Northwestern and then rain and snow for Indiana. And, you go through the season. It's been kind of a weird season weather-wise, and then this is kind of weird, but in a good way.
Yeah. Just look around. Any clouds? There's some smoke. There's some steam. There are no clouds in the sky. It's completely blue. And you may get. There's supposed to be a little partly cloudy going on later, but I think this is as close to ideal. In fact, it is ideal in November. Like, you can't expect better than what you're getting today.
Do you remember the old Southwest Airlines commercials where they were like advertising come to Phoenix and they did a fake weather report where it was like Cloud Watch 98 and it was like, oh, there's one cloud in the sky. That's like the second half today. Like, might get a couple white puffy clouds. That's
30-minute delay.
How do you think that? Yeah.
Spotted.
How do you think that might impact the game? Not that much. Yeah, it is chilly right now. It is probably mid 30s, mid to upper 30s.
28.
Guess I'm tougher than I thought.
No, it's probably warmer than that, actually.
If that's your body temperature, yes, it's 29 in Granville. I can't tell you exactly what it is here, but it's a little brisk. But it is. This is just about a perfect day for football, and I think what that tells me is no excuses. We'll get to the injuries later, and the availability report will come out just before 9 a.m. We'll be able to talk about all that stuff then, but. This is, Ohio State's had some guys banged up. Yeah, Michigan's got some guys banged up. The weather, so you got to kind of almost treat it like a wash. Blake Corum may or may not play. Okay, well, guess what? Jackson Smith-Njigba may or may not play. Okay, Donovan Edwards may not play. Okay, well, Matt Jones may or may not play. Mayan Williams, Trevion Henderson. I mean, you got to kind of put that stuff to the side right now. Weather's not an excuse. Like there's no excuse. This is the line from Wedding Crashers. No excuses. Play like a champion today.
What are excuses? Are they the tools of the week of the?
Yeah, I'll pull that up. Yeah.
No, and this is what Ryan Day wanted. So if you've got the conditions that you want, that not that you need, but that you wanted, then go and do what you are planning to do and what you think your team can do. And maybe don't kick field goals in the red zone while you're at it, and then you'll be okay. But what do you have?
I have a disappointing network of.
At least we're on.
Can you hear me now?
Can you? Boy, the commercial references from you today, Tom, outstanding.
Thank you.
Where's the beef, Tom?
Yes, where is in fact the beef? All right, I think we need to start getting into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of this game, and let's just start with the Ohio State running attack.
Right.
And I think all week we've sort of assumed, based on what we saw last week, Dallin Hayden is sort of the free space. I think the assumption all along has been Mayan Williams hurt against Indiana, looked fantastic against Indiana, then gets hurt, probably like an ankle sprain kind of injury. They didn't take him on the trip last week. Probably could have gone if last week was the Michigan game. He probably could have gone. Probably this week is the Michigan game. That leads me to think he's probably playing. Trevion Henderson didn't look right last week, and you wonder if he's if that was a give it a go, try and knock the rust off, and then play against Michigan. And then when you try and knock the rust off, and it's like, I don't like what's underneath that. Like he just didn't look right. You wonder if this might be a Mayan Williams and Dallin Hayden kind of day.
Yeah, I think so. And we both talked about how Trevion needed to get out there last week to be able to go for Michigan. But you get out there and you see, okay, he can't. Better to know then than to find out against Michigan. And the assumption with Mayan not playing last week is so that he would be ready for this one. So I think if he can go, and we know Dallin can go, what we've seen from Dallin Hayden, 26 carries in the second half last week, 26 carries and a half against any Big Ten opponent is a lot, and that's impressive for a freshman, for a senior. Probably not talked about enough what he did in that game, and none of it was necessarily spectacular, but it showed, to me, it showed that the offensive line isn't as bad as they looked in the first half, because they were getting some push, because Dallin Hayden was finding yards and getting yards and finding the creases and seeing the holes. And if you can start the game by doing that instead of waiting until the third quarter, now you're talking.
Yeah, and he's obviously not going to get 52 carries today, but if you can, if he can get, let's just for this moment stipulate that it's Mayan Williams and Dallin Hayden, and you're getting nothing out of Pregame today. We'll see how that all shakes out. But if it's Mayan Williams, how many carries are you comfortable giving Mayan Williams coming off of an ankle injury? Do you keep him to 15, or is it just kind of like ride that horse until?
Well, I mean, they wrote it 2 weeks ago, and he had 14 or 15 carries in the first half or so, and went for 150. If he had stayed healthy, are you holding him to 15 carries in that game?
No, but he's not healthy. Yeah. He wasn't healthy. Well, and he's had a knee thing before the ankle thing.
He wasn't healthy in that game.
Right. Yeah. So, and boy, if he's got 15 carries for 150 yards, this is going to be a real fun day for Ohio State fans.
And at that point, maybe you do rest him.
At that point, if he's at 15 carries for 150 yards, this is, and on a day like this, that means that the passing game is probably opening up, and this is great conditions for passing. And
bold prediction from Tom: 150 yards from Mayan Williams in the first half. 3 points.
7 points. It is going to be interesting to see how they split that up, though. If it is 15 carries or 20 carries from Mayan Williams, because I'm sure they would love to have 30 carries from the running back. So is it 15 and 15 for him and Hayden? Is it 20 and 10? Is it how do they split that up?
That's entirely up to what Mayan can handle, I guess, and how effective he is. Because as we saw last week, they kept trying with Travion, and it wasn't there. How long do you let Mayan go before you figure like it's not working? And then it's tough to turn to a freshman when your upperclassmen aren't working, where you want to just be like, let's just keep trying Mayan, because eventually it's going to hit, because it has. And not necessarily hit for 60 or 70, but he gets things going. And if you can just get him going, then he's hard to stop. But it's that how many drives can you waste to get him going? And Michigan's going to run into the same problem. We'll talk about that.
Yeah,
later.
I mean, Michigan's going to be potentially on the other side of that thing, where the other question for Ohio State in the run game is, speaking of injuries, Matt Jones, starting right guard, he's played all year. They have played him. He's had a foot thing all year, and they have kept playing him ahead of Enoch Vamahi, ahead of Josh Fryer. So that tells you they think he is very clearly their best option at right guard. The question is, okay, today we saw him right at the end of that game. He's had that bad foot, that bad ankle all year, and then you have he gets kind of rolled up right at the end of that game last week, and leaves the stadium in a boot on crutches. Like, it did not look good. And I will be interested to see. He's someone who I genuinely do not know what to expect. Like, I have a feeling, I sort of sense, and I sort of know what they're thinking with the running backs. The line with Matt Jones, I think they would love for him to play. I mean, can you get back that quickly after what looked like a really bad injury?
Linemen are different, though.
Yeah.
But already not being 100%. I don't even know what you'd put him at, 80%, 85% before the game.
Yeah.
And coming out of that, probably like 60 or 50% following that. And then what has he done throughout the week to get back to that? Man, as important as every single yard is, I think you got to go with the healthiest guy, assuming the drop-off isn't so great. And I don't think the drop-off is great. As Ryan Day was asked, a week or so ago about a 75 or 80% Travion Henderson versus a Dallin Hayden at 100%, that is a conversation they need to have. You have to have that same conversation. And then you have to have the conversation, is it Enoch Vamahi, who is the backup guard, who is the third guard, or is it Josh Fryer, who is the third tackle, started at right tackle against Indiana, graded out a champion, has not played much guard at all this year, but has played guard in the past. I don't know what they did this week in terms of, because if Josh Fryer was playing guard this week and we knew that would tell us a little bit more, but we still wouldn't know exactly the full extent of Matt Jones, I'm not going to be surprised to see Fryer or Vamahi out there instead of him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I legitimately don't know which one it is because you get the sense that they feel that Fryer's their sixth best offensive lineman, and then the question is just, do they feel that to the degree that they're willing to put him in a spot where he is really not? We talk all the time about the importance of playing together and the offensive line gelling. He's been backing up a tackle this year. He has not been the backup guard, so you're really asking a lot. And you got all sorts of blitz pickups, and that's a different deal on the inside of the line than a tackle.
But they have asked him to do different things as that extra tackle, the jumbo tight end. So they have asked him to do different things that aren't just tackle based. So he has a history of being able to do that, and he's a third-year guy now. He's no longer a young guy. He can do a lot. We will see, and we'll be out there watching to see who that first offensive line is during warm-ups, and obviously we'll let you guys know via Twitter and the message board there.
So that's kind of the Ohio State rushing attack. The Ohio State passing attack, I think, again, I'm not expecting Jackson Smith and Jigba to play. I think at this point, based on what Ryan Day has said, my assumption is you will see Jackson Smith and Jigba if and when they make the college football playoff and not before. Just based on his, I think, I hope, basically I know, I think, I wonder. It's like I know, I think, I hope for Ryan Day. And it feels like when he went to like, well, I hope we see him again, that to me feels like, well, either he's not coming back or he's only coming back if a bunch of stuff that Ohio State wants to happen all happens in a row, and that that would be involved making the college football playoff.
I think the bigger question is, will he even be on the sideline today? We haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we see him today. Someone who we definitely will see today is Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. has done just fine this year, even without Jackson Smith and Jigba. You wonder. We have a super chat.
Just Taylor Link with a super chat, no question. But thank you, Taylor Link, for your super chat.
All right,
thank you, Taylor Link, for your super chats. Well earned on our part. Got here. The sun is now rising over the buildings to light our faces and to warm our hearts.
There you go. This feels like if the run game is there, this could be a big day for Marvin Harrison. If the run game is not there, this could be a big day for Marvin Harrison.
Well, and they've been close. Like C.J. Stroud and Marvin have been close to connecting on some deep shots. I expect them to hit at least one of those today, and I think they need to continue to shoot for those because he has been getting open on those, just the 9 routes, the go ball. He's been getting open on those. They've just been out of reach, but he obviously they're going to move him around because they're going to try to avoid these double teams and then also take advantage of the double teams. I think sometimes they will put him into a double team so that either Emeka or Julian Fleming are free. But then when those guys are, they absolutely have to catch the football.
Yeah.
And Julian Fleming especially has to catch that football because he's going to have some opportunities with just him and a corner with no safety in the vicinity. And he has to make those plays. CJ has to hit those throws. And then this could be one of those 3 catches, 140 yards type of thing, like Devin Smith type of game.
Yeah. And, you say Devin Smith, and what's so interesting is you've seen Julian Fleming struggling at times, and you've had games where just, at Northwestern, and, we've talked about the win at Northwestern, so there's a little bit of asterisk against it, like 9 targets and 1 catch at Northwestern. And he had the drop against Indiana. And it's just, you have to be able to capitalize on those opportunities. I keep waiting to see Jaden Ballard. We've talked about that before, where Jaden Ballard is, could Jaden Ballard be the Devin Smith kind of guy who they have not necessarily had this year? That was, you saw that with Olave a bunch. You saw that with Devin Smith back in the day. I keep waiting to see a Jaden Ballard game, and we have not really seen him do anything of any consequence since the Toledo game.
Yeah.
Mike Farina with a super chat. If OSU wins the toss, do you think they take the ball to put pressure on Michigan early, or do they defer like usual?
Tom, if they don't defer, I will be shocked. They want to get the ball out of the half. They want to give Michigan an opportunity. They want to get their defense on the field first, set the tone that way. Allow the Ohio State offense to ease into things. And as always, just as a theory, you don't want to give Michigan, allow them to have the last possession of the first half and the first possession of the second half. I know people say, well, the possessions even out. That's fine. You don't ever want to give 2 possessions in a row.
Right. That's the thing where, with 3 minutes left in the first half, and this, you're winning by 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the ball and you're getting the ball at the start of the second half, the other team could theoretically be down 17 points.
Yeah.
Instead, you go from a down 3 to down 3 scores before they get the ball back again. That's why you almost always see teams defer. And again, we talked about the crowd earlier. It's going to be rocking in there at 12:05. Ohio State would love to have that rocking atmosphere to be nice and loud when Michigan has the ball, rather than everyone having to quiet down. Okay, CJ Stroud doing the hand, shh, that whole thing. I think that if it's me, I'm deferring.
Absolutely.
Super chat from Cat Troll. Buckeyes are 36-1 at home recently. We don't lose at home. Buckeye Nation will be so loud JJ won't be able to think, let alone play ball. Bucks 34-23.
It's a pretty close score. It's not exactly correct. The correct score is 34-24.
Don't spoil it. Gosh.
Well, I mean, we've only been on 18 hours this week, and I've shared our scores throughout many of those hours. So
I didn't
apologies.
mean spoil your score prediction.
Okay.
I mean the actual don't spoil the game.
Yes, sorry. Well, we've also been doing that for another 18 hours, but it's what was the last home loss, Tom?
It was Oregon last year.
Yes, that's so long ago.
Oregon
So
last
long
year,
ago.
and prior to that, it was Oklahoma in 17, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that you can go back to 2017, and then it's like, well, and before that, it was Michigan State in 15, and before that, it was Virginia Tech in 14, and before that, it was about
Something
17
in
times in 2011. Yeah,
Penn State.
Penn State, I think, in 2011. But yeah, I mean, you can go back 11 years and just rattle off, count off. Like Tony didn't even have to take his glove off his other hand to count to get through all those losses. Ohio State does not lose here very often, and I think Ryan Day doesn't lose very often. Ryan Day, I was looking at Ryan Day's record. It's 45-4. It's like, wow, that sounds pretty good. And then you look at his winning percentage. It's .918. And do you know how many other current coaches in FBS have a .918 winning percentage?
Zero.
Zero. Tony, do you know how many of the Ryan Day's only coaching 40? This will be his 50th game. Do you know how many coaches in the national history of college football, minimum 100 games, the Newt Rockne, Frank Leahy list, you know how many of them have a .918 winning percentage?
Zero.
Also zero. Yes, correct. So Ryan Day does not lose unless his team doesn't score 30 points. And then it's he's 45-4, but when his team scores 30 points, it's like 39-4, and then when his team doesn't score 30 points, it's 39-0, and then it's 6-4. Oh, hey.
Mute your mic.
That's the that sounds like the I believe that's the Ohio State marching band practicing over there, doing the special welcome to Columbus.
Say what you
version.
want. It is an awesome fight song.
Yeah. Oh, I will. People will always be like, say something nice about Michigan. Like, yeah, that's a great fight song. Yeah, that's a that's a really nice.
No, it's gross.
That Ann Arbor is a very nice city. I like Ann Arbor a lot. There's plenty of nice things.
They have the sandwich in Ann Arbor. It's called a pastrami sandwich.
Yeah, we'll get to that
local.
later. But no, it is a what we were talking about before. Oh, Ryan Day. Ryan Day 45-4, but it's like 39-0 when they score 30 points and like 6-4 when they don't score 30 points. So and this is a game where you look at Michigan and it's like, I don't think Michigan's getting more than 30 points unless they're scoring on defense or special teams. So this feels like another game where if Ohio State gets to 30, they're feeling pretty good. And if they don't, it's going to look maybe a lot like you've seen the Oregon game last year. How did they lose the Oregon game? Going for it and not converting in the red zone. How did they lose the Michigan game last year? Kicked a couple field goals and couldn't get off the field on defense. And the Oregon game, they couldn't get off the field on defense. They should be able to get off the field on defense this week. I think a lot, certainly better than they did last year, because it couldn't be worse against Michigan. So to me, this is just basically if Ohio State scores, what's their season average? 80% in the red zone touchdowns,
something like that.
If they're anywhere close to that, if they are at
4 for 5,
if they're at 75%, 80% in the red zone, this is and whatever, round the numbers accordingly, depending on the denominator there. But
if they're 7 for 9,
if they're 7 for 9, you're feeling pretty good about their chances scoring touchdowns in the red zone. At that point, I don't think the other two, what they do in the other two trips really matters. But if they're 50% scoring touchdowns in the red zone, that's where Ohio State could lose this game.
It just depends on how many times they get there. If it's 3 for 6 and you're kicking 3 field goals, and there's your 30 points.
Well, that's the game. If you're 3 for 6 scoring touchdowns in the red zone and kick 3 field goals, that's like the Nebraska game last year or the Penn State game last year, where they're controlling the game, and it's like, why is this game still a 6-point game?
Right.
That's 50% in the red zone is, it's okay if it's 3 for 6, and they probably win the game if it's 3 for 6. But you have a lot of Ohio State fans like rubbing their temples in the second half and throwing remotes into the wall and all that.
That's where one play can make this a tie game, could make it a 1-score game, anything like that. So, yeah, the lower your percentage, the lower your margins, for error there. And I just think Michigan's conservative nature may make Ryan Day play conservatively in the red zone, where 3 points is not a loss. And so I wonder how much of that we will see.
3 points is not a loss, but 3 points and then 3 points and then 3 points could be a loss.
Super chat from Jason Stewart. TTUN always does something dumb, like starting a fight, hit out of bounds, even trying to untie shoes. What will today bring?
Well, there will definitely be a skirmish, don't you think? Today there has to be a skirmish of some sort, like pregame, something like that. Michigan, accustomed to just coming out of one tunnel, perhaps may attempt to come out of Ohio State's tunnel. Maybe go through like South Stands underneath and come around or something like that.
Special rumble in the photo bunker under South Stands. Yeah.
And no pictures, because that would be the truest irony. There's a fight in the photo bunker and nobody gets any pictures of it. But there will be something. I do expect some pushing and shoving. If I set the over under on sportsmanlike penalties at 1.5, Tom, before the game.
But not before the game. I will take the over there, because I think the officials probably throw out an offsetting unsportsmanlike conduct penalty at some point, where it's like you're not impacting the game at all, but also you're sort of sending a message to knock it off. I think I'll take the over on that for that reason. It is, this is one of Ryan Day's favorite sayings, and we have now been around Ryan Day often enough that someone will ask a question, and I'm like, all right, I already know the phrase he's about to say. Tony,
well, Tom,
you have to play with emotion. Tony, you cannot let emotion play with you.
That is true, and it's his other one is live, laugh, love, but this is the one he uses most often in football, and it's true. I mean, you have to be smart in this game, because, especially if you cost your team 10 yards or 15 yards and you keep a drive alive or you kill a drive, you can't afford that in these games, especially with as important as each possession is, as important as each score is, as important as these stakes are for what is on the line. If you are making unforced errors, it's one thing if you hold somebody because they're getting past you and you just, that's just what you do, you react. But if you're hitting somebody late, if you're just all of these unforced things, or just lack of concentration, lack of awareness, that hurts. And 2nd and 20 is a losing proposition in this game.
2nd and 20 is a losing proposition for both teams in this game. And you go back to the last time this was 11-0 versus 11-0, and there was a late hit out of bounds on Troy Smith that extended drive. Was that Crable or Woodley? Crable, yes. Sean Crable hit Troy Smith way out of bounds, got flagged, extended an Ohio State drive in a game that Ohio State won by a field goal. That, you can't have that kind of play. You have to be responsible, and you certainly hope this is not a game that the officials take over, that this doesn't turn into a ref show. It was last week. It was kind of like, all right, this is a lot of flags on both teams. Like, what if you bump the sliders down like 2 notches and just let the children play the football? I mean, that's my opinion. All right, so let's go on to the Michigan run game. Oh, super chat.
I couldn't hear you. What are we doing?
I said we're moving on to the Michigan run game.
Oh, I thought you were signaling me.
Super chat from Kevin Noon.
No.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah. Well, he does have the band playing behind him, but Kevin, don't worry, we have certain signals for you. You will know.
Anyway, so let's move on to the Michigan run game. And the story of the Michigan run game today feels like it centers entirely around the who and not the where or what or how. It's just, is Blake Corum going to play, and if so, how well will he play? Is Donovan Edwards going to play, and if so, how well is he going to play? And then if not, how do you cobble together something with C.J. Stokes, Javier Dunlap, Isaiah Gash, and perhaps most importantly in that case, J.J. McCarthy?
I think you get some receiver stuff going on, some A.J. Henning on some jet sweeps, things like that, where you just have to manufacture, like Ohio State has done with Xavier Johnson, with Mecca, where you're trying to steal some carries somewhere, trying to get some 70-yard gains somewhere. And if you don't have Blake Corum and you don't have 100% Blake Corum and he's 85%, that's still better than 100% C.J. Stokes. But it's I don't know. I don't think it's enough. Now, if you get into this thing like Chris Perry in 2003, where he's acting hurt all the time and picking himself up very slowly after an 8-yard gain or 9-yard gain, and trying to use like psychological warfare, that's another thing. I don't expect that. Not having Blake Corum be able to go last week and then asking him to go this week, I think that's a lot.
Yeah, and you've heard all sorts of different rumors about what exactly the issue is with Corum. It's a partially torn ACL. It's a meniscus. It's a bone bruise in the knee. Like it's whatever it is, whatever it is. And it either means he can't play or risk further injury, or he can play but he can't shift laterally, or he can play but maybe he doesn't have full leg drive. And for someone with, even the best case scenario there, if he doesn't have, the full leg drive that he normally has, that's such a crucial part of this game, because what makes him so good is that he's constantly pushing the pile, turning a play that's blocked for 3 into 5 yards, 6 yards. He is like exactly what Ryan Day talks about wanting in a running back. That's what he is. And almost no matter what, it feels like that's going to be compromised to at least some degree today.
Well, he gets lost behind his offensive line. It's hard for defensive linebackers to see him. And he can go into the line of scrimmage one area and then come out another area. But he needs his lateral quickness to do that. And he needs to be able to be quick enough as the national anthem is going on.
It doesn't count because they're just practice.
But he comes out of a different area. It's like watching Scooby-Doo whenever he chased by the ghost and they go one door to another, that's what he does. And can he do that if the knee isn't there? Can the jump cuts, just going laterally while not losing any speed? Every little bit of that gives him just an extra foot away from the defender. And if he loses that distance, now you're talking about Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers, maybe do they go 3 linebackers with Cody Simon in there? That gives Ohio State maybe just enough of that edge to bring them down.
And if it is not Blake Corum, or even if it is, the next question is Donovan Edwards. And Donovan Edwards has had a hand issue for a couple of weeks, hasn't played for a couple of weeks. He is someone who, he's not the pile pusher that like Corbett, but if he can go, he's certainly a better option for them than C.J. Stokes. And he's someone who also really brings them something in the passing game where we've talked all year, we'll get to this year passing game in a minute. They haven't been able to throw the ball downfield at all this year, any kind of consistency. Donovan Edwards lives in the J.J. McCarthy zone, which is 10 yards from the line of scrimmage or less.
Yeah, a lot of flare outs and wheel routes, and they will line him up out wide the receiver and just send him out against the linebacker or safety. And it's a winning matchup for Michigan. I mean, he's done stuff against defensive backs this year. Now, I think it's not just a hand. I think there's a foot issue as well. So there's who knows how healthy he is in either of those aspects. Sure.
I don't want to share a bike. All right. So speaking of things that may or may not work today, so that's Donovan Edwards, that's Blake Corum. If you don't have those two guys, or if those two guys, you see Blake Corum go and it's like 6 carries for 4 yards, okay, so this is not working. How big a threat is J.J. McCarthy?
I think Well, then he almost becomes a bigger mark. Whereas if the other guys are going, he's a bigger threat. Now, if he's the best running back that they have, now you can single him out or just be more cautious and contain him. If they're doing all of these other things with the other running backs and misdirection and stuff, zone read and things like that, it's almost like if it's zone read with him and CJ Stokes, you go after quarterback, that sort of thing, that dictate who you want to get the ball. But I think he's going to be running the ball quite a bit anyway. I think he needs to. You need to get every single first down you can. And he can get it with his legs, get it with his legs, and his arm.
And this is the other side of the Michigan run game is the Ohio State run defense, and the defensive line has been pretty good. We'll see, and it'll be fascinating to see how they hold up against the Michigan offensive line.
The best line they've faced all year. This is an offensive line that's probably going to prepare them for what they are going to face in the playoff if they have to play a Georgia, if they have to play a, another team like that. I think the big question to me is, can the line continue to hold up the, do the spill and kill thing, where the line just occupies all those blockers, and then get Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg to make the plays. Tommy Eichenberg playing with 2 broken hands, which is that's it. He's out of hands. Yes, yeah, record tying 2 broken hands. Yes, Antonio Fonseca has a chance to break the broken fingers record. No one can break the broken hands record. So, yeah, that's I think. I've been surprised at how little of a concern that is. It's just kind of like everyone just kind of goes, yeah, well, I mean, it's Tommy, so whatever, he'll do it.
Yeah, as long as he has limbs. But, we saw him this week, and he was not in any casts or any braces. His hands looked fine. So, he's not going to go into, well, it's this metacarpal, this particular finger, this particular knuckle, this particular bone in the hand. But he's like, it would take a lot to keep him from playing in this game, and certainly what he's dealing with right now. I think it behooves Ohio State to have a not 100% Blake Corum, because having a not 100% Tommy Eichenberg as your middle linebacker against a running back who can break tackles, make guys miss, and the ankle tackles aren't really a thing with Blake Corum. And if Jim Knowles has talked about how they've had to go with some different techniques with Tommy in terms of his tackling, and that's one thing to try it, but against a guy like Blake Corum, you want to be at your best, because, well, I'm going to do this technique or I'm going to do this technique. He may not cooperate.
Yeah, this is not the game where you want to be experimenting, but Michigan is experimenting too in terms of like what can Blake Corum do and what can Blake Corum not do. And I mean, there's so many injuries on both sides of the game. Does this feel like a year where, I mean, it felt all year to me like a year where Ohio State has had so many more injuries than a typical year, and I don't know if that's really true or not, but this feels like a game where you have more. Ohio State's healthier than they have been for most of the year, but also you have more guys who are like key players: Jackson Smith-Njigba, Mayan Williams, Travion Henderson, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. I mean, all these guys, and Junior Colson too on the defense for Michigan. It feels like there's so many guys who are potentially really key players who maybe not. Maybe can go, but not be full go. I mean, there's so many injuries this year. It feels like that's been a bigger storyline this year than in a typical year.
Yeah, and Ryan Day said it about 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago, that it feels like to him he's seeing more injuries around college football, because we were even talking about all of the injuries at Ohio State way back then, and he was saying, like, I think it's that all over college football, and I don't know why it is, if it's just one of those years, but it's every week. You just don't know who's going to play, who isn't. And even for Michigan last week, being without Mike Morris, it's just, well, they're not here today. It was something that happened in practice or happened last game. And, you don't always see injuries during the games, especially late in the games, because guys leave the game for any number of reasons. But it's one of those things this year where to be as healthy as Ohio State may be at this point, when they're not healthy, but they're healthier than they've been, that's about as good as you could hope for right now in this final game.
And, yeah, I didn't mention Mike Morris. I didn't mention Luke Schoonmaker for Michigan, who's probably going to be back, their tight end. Didn't mention Matt Jones for Ohio State. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are on that list who are, kind of questionable or maybe playing, maybe not playing, maybe out for both of those teams. So that's going to be something to watch as we get a little closer to game time. We will actually have the availability report available to us at 8:55 a.m., so we'll be able to give you the actual answer on the Ohio State side of things, Michigan not providing that to us at 8:55 a.m. So that'll remain a mystery a little bit longer, I guess. But
I got a DM from somebody who's like, "Hey, when does Michigan's availability report come out?" And I'm like, "It don't."
12:07 a.m. or p.m. Yes. So that's the Michigan run game. Let's talk a little bit about the Michigan pass game. Michigan pass game is it has felt for weeks like they are desperately trying to show you, no, mom, watch me, mom, watch, no hands, mom, look, watch, I can throw the ball downfield. And then just the bike keeps tipping over.
Then they hit their head, skinned their knee, and now we got to take them to the emergency room. But
For a skin knee.
I also
This generation.
he also hit his head. No bike helmet because he's tough. It's Big Ten bike racing. But it's every week it's kind of an adventure, and it can start out hot. Like I think it started out pretty good last week. They were throwing the ball around a bit, completing some passes, but then there's just long stretches of nothing, and they can go 2 quarters without doing really anything in the passing game. And I don't think they can afford to do that this week. And you need your receivers to make the plays that are available to them. And the times when J.J. McCarthy puts it in their hands, if they don't catch it, that's a wasted down. That's a win for Ohio State every time the ball hits a receiver in his hands and he drops it. And it's happening way too often.
Yeah, Andrew Anthony had one last week where it was, we've talked for weeks about J.J. McCarthy throwing the ball downfield. Okay, we have some audio issues. We're working. Should we keep talking? Okay. So, last week you had Andrew Anthony drop one. For weeks we said J.J. McCarthy is missing out by 5 yards throwing downfield. He hits Andrew Anthony in the hands between the corner and the safety. It was a perfect throw and it feels like Ohio State has the guys who they I think they absolutely trust Marcus Harris to make any play in the world, and he's not going to make every single one, but they trust him to do it. When Ronnie Bell's getting open downfield, it's like he's so open that there's no open on him, so it's an easy throw. Who does Michigan trust to make a contested catch downfield, and who does Michigan trust to make that throw?
Well, obviously it's going to be Jason making the throw. We've seen Donovan Edwards who is the contested back shoulder guy. There are a lot of back shoulder throws for Michigan. And with you, Luke Schoonmaker is our number one option. Ronnie Bell, a little bit open, to catch some stuff. Cornelius Johnson is being a 50-50 guy, but has not been able to do that. He was a good at it, so fight the ball. We've got some freshmen there yet. But yeah, it's going to be Schoonmaker. I think we'll have. I don't know how he's going to be running most of those two guys will be playing most of tight end. They may have 12 catches between.
You mentioned a stat yesterday, and Michigan throwing for 300 yards this year.
It was once against Hawaii.
Yeah, okay, once. So if Michigan throws for 300 yards today in Columbus, is that a good thing for Ohio State, or is that a bad thing for Ohio State?
It feels like it's chasing points to me rather than part of Michigan's offense, because that's not what Michigan is. So if that's what they're forced to be, it kind of feels like chasing points, not unlike C.J. Stroud throwing for 394 last year against Michigan, or 490 whatever against Oregon the year before. So 300, I mean they would have to hit their 2 or 3 or 4 big shots, and like hit 75% of their big shots downfield to get to 300, I think, in the course of their offense. But that's not what they do. They'll throw for like 150 in a normal game, and then if they hit 350 yarders, now you've got your 300.
Yeah, it does. It feels like if you're throwing that much, you probably can't run the ball, and if Michigan can't run the ball, that feels like a bad thing to me for Michigan. We are going to just to kind of reset for you here at the bottom of the hour as we head towards things. Well, in about 10 minutes, we're going to give you a look at. We made a trip up to Ann Arbor on Monday. Got to talk to Jim Harbaugh. Got to talk to some of the Michigan players. Got to do a Hungry Huddle segment up in Michigan. We'll do that in about 10 minutes. We also have at 8:55, we'll have the availability report available. Can give you an update on exactly who is and is not going to be playing for Ohio State today. But
as we get down towards the bottom of the hour here, let's just sort of take a moment and just look around us and say, holy smokes, what a gorgeous day. And it's chilly right now. It's 30 degrees or whatever it's right now, but it is going to warm up quite a bit. It's supposed to be in the high 40s around kickoff time. It's supposed to be in the mid 50s by the mid afternoon. There's no wind to speak of. There is not a cloud in the sky. This is, if Ryan Day has been saying his prayers and asking for a specific type day of weather here, boy, this is probably about what he was saying.
It is such a stark contrast from the Northwestern game and really any of the other games, because there's even been rain in the past few games, sprinkles and things like that. But this, again, if you tried to draw this up in September and say, hey, if we get this, that would be awesome. It's like, well, come on, let's be realistic. It's not going to be completely sunny. It's not going to be 55 degrees. It's not going to be at 50 degrees at kickoff. It's not going to be perfect November football weather. Let's prepare for something more realistic. And this one, I wonder in practice if they're actually having to dry the footballs. But this is, as you said earlier in the show, this is the kind of weather where there will be no excuses. There can be no excuses unless it's I lost the ball in the sun. And really, we know that's not an excuse because Brian Hartline tells his receivers to catch the sun.
Yeah, he will tell them, like, if the ball's in the sun, well, that means that's where the ball. If the ball's in the sun, then the ball's in the sun, so catch the sun. Yes. And, we have seen Ohio State have kickoff return issues. Like last year, Julian Fleming, I think, lost one ball in the sun, and then against Michigan, muffed one at the start of the game where they started real deep in their own end as well. You haven't really seen that this year. I'm not expecting that. But special teams does feel like something where that has been Ohio State has made some impact plays on special teams. Ohio State 6 weeks ago was 95th in the country in special teams SP+, and it was like, what is going on? How do you have a special teams coordinator and you're 95th in the country? And then I looked this week and they were, I think, 12th, 10th, something like that, and that is a couple blocked punts. And Ohio State doesn't need its special teams to win games for them. They just need them to just sort of catch the punts and give the ball to the offense.
Move the game along.
Fair catch the kickoffs. Give the ball to the offense. And just don't get a punt blocked and don't get a, make your makeable field goal. So that's it. You just need like the basic stuff from the special teams. They have the last couple weeks gotten much more than that. They got a block punt against Indiana. They had a block punt against Maryland. Those are and both of those were touchdowns or set up touchdowns. And so that's that I think it goes without saying. If Ohio State blocks a punt today, they probably win the game because you almost always win a game when you block a punt. But 2018, you go back to that game. That was a game where a block punt really kind of swung things because Ohio State had dominated the first half. They had that stupid 13-second span in the first half where they give up a touchdown. Damari McCall muffs the kickoff. Michigan scores 2 touchdowns in 13 seconds, and it's going to halftime with a 1-point game, and then turned it around in the second half. The block punt was a big part of that. It feels like if special teams are just kind of okay today, if special teams are a wash, that's probably a win for Ohio State.
Absolutely, because Michigan special teams are very good. But we also saw Xavier Johnson doing a little bit more as a kick returner. So there's that as well. But yeah, if you just a stalemate there is a win for Ohio State. Now, if they win it there, then that's great as well. But you just don't want that area to cause you to lose anything. And that's not just lose the game, but lose 30 yards in field position. Because they talk about if you save 10 yards, that's a first down that they don't have to get now. If you catch a punt at the 20 instead of letting it roll, that's a first down that Ohio State doesn't have to go get on offense. So they really value these 10-yard increments. And really that's what special teams is all about, is that field position. So any first downs they can get through special teams or keep Michigan from getting through special teams, that's super important. And you just don't want to lose the edge there.
And Jesse Mirko has been so good at killing punts inside the 10, inside the 5. This is a game where if, Michigan yards feel like they're going to come more easily for Ohio State today than they will for Michigan, more than likely. So if you pin Michigan back, I will not be in favor of either team punting from the plus 37 or whatever, but it feels like if Ohio State can pin Michigan back, you're asking, they have that chart and the plan to win. And if you start inside your own 10, you're like 3% likely to score a touchdown. So, if you're going to pin people back, if Jesse Merker can kill punts inside the 5, that could be a big thing as well. Tony's going to have to dip out here in a minute, but I mean, before he goes, I do want to let him weigh in on, we've seen Ryan Day in games sometimes have some curious game management stuff. We've seen Jim Harbaugh in games sometimes have some curious game management stuff. Is that something that Ryan Day has to outcoach Jim Harbaugh today, or is this another, if everything is just sort of even Steven status quo, that's okay for Ohio State?
That's a good question, because Jim Harbaugh is going to want to run the clock and keep Ohio State off the field. So the way Ryan Day keeps his timeouts or uses his timeouts may allow Ohio State to have that last possession in the first half, something like that, where you don't want to be using these timeouts to stop a delay of game. Trying to get into the perfect play offensively, that because the defense is moving around and C.J. Stroud is looking back, looking over at Ryan Day, so they need to get those plays in quicker. And if they don't do that this game, and they cost themselves some timeouts, that could be a touchdown that they don't get at the end of the first half. So it's very important to get the plays in, have things run smoothly, and not have to waste timeouts because you want to avoid a delay of game.
All right, so Tony's going to have to dip out here for just a minute. Don't worry. He'll be back. But while we're waiting for Tony to come back, Tony and I did go up to Ann Arbor this week along with Kevin, covered the Michigan press conference on Monday, talked to Jim Harbaugh, talked to a bunch of Michigan players. But perhaps most importantly, Tony, we had lunch.
That's right.
And when you go to Ann Arbor, and there is one place that everyone will tell you, and it's like, we thought, well, is this too cliched? Is it to go to Zingerman's? Is that too obvious? And then we asked a bunch of Ann Arbor locals, and like, no, you got to go to Zingerman's. All right, well, fine, we'll go to Zingerman's. So here is this week's episode of Hungry Huddle from Ann Arbor. What are your thoughts?
Actually, I'm pretty angry at the both of you because that was my first time having pastrami, and it was really, really good.
All right, we are in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's the week of the Ohio State versus Michigan game. We're here to cover the Jim Harbaugh press conference, and when we go on the road, what do, Tony?
We like to go to places to eat food.
That is a thing that we do, kind of a requirement. So it's like, well, how can we make this fun? Well, we're going to do a 100 Huddle segment. And when you go to Ann Arbor, there's one place that everyone thinks of when you say, there's a restaurant in Ann Arbor, where should we go? What does everyone say?
Zingerman's.
And it is an answer that you hear from people so frequently that we were like, maybe it's like too cliche. So when we came up last night and we asked some locals, like, is there a place we should go other than that? Because it feels like everyone goes there. And like, no, you have to go there. There's a reason everyone goes there, and it's because it's the best.
Right.
So it is a traditional Jewish delicatessen. So when I go to a deli, what do I get? I get a pastrami on rye with spicy mustard. This is what you do. Tony, what did you get?
I don't know that I've ever had pastrami, so this will be another adventure. I assume that I have, but I don't know that I have. I got a pastrami with some coleslaw with some Russian dressing. I believe it's called Kelly something or other. So it's not your traditional thing. It's what I prefer.
That's fine.
Hopefully.
That's fine. You got a pastrami. That's the important thing. Kevin also got a pastrami. So I think it's time, Tony. I think it's time to dig in.
Let's do that.
Oh, just show you. Just nice, just a thick pile of pastrami. Good thick cut bread. Lots of spicy mustard. Tony's just grilled up.
This looks good. I'm ready for this. Let's try this out.
It's like a modified Reuben, basically, with coleslaw instead of sauerkraut. I think that looks pretty good. Take a look at that. Good, very good. Yeah. You can see why this place is an institution.
We don't mind.
All right, Tony, what are your thoughts?
Actually, I'm pretty angry at the both of you because that was my first time having pastrami, and it was really, really good. So I blame both of you for not having taken me somewhere like this before. So I'm not talking to you guys anymore.
I was wondering how this was going to end up being our fault somehow, and to your credit, that was a dumber reason than I was expecting. So that's good on you. Yes, excellent pastrami, good, nice, lean, moist, exactly what you want. If I had to complain about something, and you know how we like to do that.
Yes.
They list their pickles. What Kevin had, what they called an old pickle and a new pickle, and I just got an old pickle. It was just a garlic pickle. What they call new pickles are actually what are called in New York half sours, which is it's like basically a pickle that has not been pickled quite as long. So they call that a new pickle here. That is actually my preferred type of pickle.
Really?
I didn't realize that they had had half sours because they don't call them half sours. So if you come here, try the new pickle, which is actually a half sour pickle. But that holds up. It holds up to it is a fascinating place. It's a very eclectic building, a series of buildings where you just kind of, it's like a maze. I said
is it
to
up
you,
to code?
That's not for me to say, Tony, but
it is definitely up to code.
Yes, it is. On the way up the stairs, after winding through about 3 different buildings, I said to Tony, "This is like a Voltron deli." They just kind of pieced all these different things together. But very, very cool, very unique place, and one of those places that if you come to Ann Arbor, everyone tells you to come there, and then you go there and you're like, oh yeah, that's why everyone tells you to come there.
Yeah, and I would echo that because it was really good. I wouldn't mind going again. Now I'm actually going to be seeking out more pastrami in my life, which is perfect. So. All
right, so that will do it from here at Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor. And people say that people from Columbus can't say anything nice about Ann Arbor during the game, the week of the Michigan game.
We can't still. I would also complain about the pickle, but we do not have time. It is probably best that we get out of here.
All right. Thank you to us, I guess. We're going up to Ann Arbor and doing that segment. Was a delightful lunch, and hope you guys enjoyed that. We always try and do those whenever we're on the road for something, even if it is just for interviews. We are back home in Columbus today, of course, and it is a gorgeous day here in Columbus. The weather is just about perfect for a game this time of year. I'm going to let you look down in the parking lot behind us. This is down in the southwest corner of Ohio Stadium. There's a Michigan equipment truck. They had a police officer standing right there guarding it at one point earlier this morning. That's probably a precaution based on previous experience, shall we say. But yeah, overall, just an absolutely beautiful day in Columbus. It's going to be close to 50 at kickoff time. A little chilly right now, but perfect blue skies, not a cloud in the sky. You think of the Ohio State-Michigan game, and it's 38 degrees and cloudy and maybe spitting a little snow or rain. That is not at all what today is. Today is just an absolute perfect day for college football. Should be perfect conditions. And, on a fast, dry track, you would think that probably favors Ohio State. So that is something to keep an eye on. The last year, the weather was a big story in a negative way for Ohio State. This year, the weather a potentially big story in a positive way for Ohio State as we sit now just a little over 3 hours to kick off, about 3 hours and 20 minutes to kick off for the Ohio State-Michigan game. Just to sort of reset things for you since we've picked up some new viewers in the last few minutes. Tony will be back in just a moment. He is currently on the radio. But we are gonna in about 15 minutes, we will have the availability report for you, be able to let you know who is and is not playing, any game time decisions there may be. So that's obviously a pretty big story today with Ohio State, with Mayan Williams banged up, Travion Henderson banged up, Matt Jones banged up, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Will he make his big big return today? We'll see. And I think the Matt Jones one is going to be an interesting one to watch because he's played all year. He's been banged up all year and played all year. Aggravated or made worse his injury, his foot and ankle injury last week at Maryland, right towards the end of the game. So what's going to happen with him? We'll be able to let you know in about 15 minutes. On the Michigan side, same kind of story. Boy, a lot of injuries. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, the 2 top running backs, both banged up. There's been all sorts of conflicting information this week about who will play, who won't play. Michigan does not do an availability report, so we will not have a Michigan answer for you at 8:55, but we will have the Ohio State answer for you. And then, on Junior Colson, the linebacker, we haven't even talked about him really this morning. One of their linebackers, a very big part of that defense, where the drop-off is from him to a freshman. Jimmy Ralder, a freshman who Ohio State recruiting fans may remember as someone who Ohio State was kind of trying to make a late run at last cycle. He is a freshman. He would be the backup if Junior Colson can't go. That seems like that might be an issue for Michigan if he can't go. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Speaking of recruiting, our good buddy Alex Gleitman. This is a huge recruiting weekend for Ohio State, which makes sense. It is a big game situation. Obviously, great game atmosphere. This is the kind of game that, they talk about. This is the kind of game that you come to Ohio State to play in. This is the kind of game you also come to Ohio State to visit for. And there are a lot of big names on the list this weekend. Our buddy Alex Gleitman from BuckeyeHuddle.com, fantastic recruiting analyst, has a complete list on our huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com of everyone who's visiting, but also some potential commitments and pretty significant names who are visiting this weekend. So let's let Alex fill you in on all of that.
Hey, Buckeye Nation, big game today on the field, but maybe just as big of a recruiting weekend off the field. Ohio State will be hosting a large number of prospects for the game this weekend. Some of those kids came in on Friday. We'll be leaving on Sunday. Some are just coming for the game, but it is a long list of prospects. If you head to BuckeyeHuddle.com and go into the Huddle message board, you'll see a full list under the game recruiting visitor list. It is about 50 plus names on that list, a lot of them 4- and 5-star prospects. We're going to talk about a few of them today, mostly in the 2023 class, because there's some really interesting names. And then, we'll talk about some guys who I have on commitment watch for Ohio State. So first up, quarterback Lincoln Kienholz, 2023 quarterback out of South Dakota, making his official visit to Ohio State. He's currently committed to Washington, but he is on an official visit to Ohio State. Brock Glenn just left the class, went to Florida State. Lincoln Kienholz comes in for an official visit. Coincidence? I don't think so. So watch that one very closely. At running back, Trey Cornish out of Winton Woods, trying to pull a Mayan Williams and get in this Ohio State class late. Ohio State lost a commitment from Mark Fletcher a couple weeks back. Looks like he's probably headed to Florida or Miami. NIL playing a large part in that recruitment. Ohio State's looking for a running back. Could they take the in-state Trey Cornish, who I'm told they could probably get at any time before he signs with an offer as somewhat of an insurance policy, and then kind of go big game hunting with some guys like a Reuben Owens or Justice Haynes, who might just be on campus this weekend as well. But that's something to look for. Does Trey Cornish get offered while on campus this weekend? Defensive end Damon Wilson deciding between Georgia and Ohio State. He's coming up from Florida. Venice, he is a 5-star type of player, even if he has a 4-star ranking on a few of the sites. Ohio State has him at the top of the board at defensive end. They would love to add at least 2, if not 3 defensive ends in this class. I think this visit could help push Ohio State over the top. Joshua Mickens is another defensive end that could fit into those 2 or 3 spots that they have at that position to fill out this class. He's an LSU commit, but he's from Indiana. Ohio State's been on him for a while. They hosted him 2 weeks ago for an unofficial visit. They offered once they saw that he was very serious about exploring Ohio State as an option. Now he's coming in for an official visit. Is this a done deal? I don't think so. I think that this weekend is very big as far as Joshua Mickens deciding to flip from LSU or not. But gun to my head, I think I would have to pick Ohio State, as they're very good in these types of situations. A couple other guys I just wanted to mention. Cameron Calhoun, cornerback out of Winton Woods. I think this might be the case of Ohio State just kind of keeping the seat warm a little bit with another cornerback in state, very friendly with current fellow commit or fellow Winton Woods corner and current Ohio State commit Jermaine Matthews, also very good friends with Trey Cornish. Might want to see just this game up close and personal. They hosted him for the Notre Dame game. Hasn't really been a ton of serious interest, but this is a kid. Michigan's offered, hosted him on an official visit. Kentucky has offered. Those are 2 pretty solid programs in the Big Ten and SEC respectively. So could Ohio State decide last minute to offer Cameron Calhoun and potentially make the former Cincinnati and former West Virginia commit a Buckeye? That's something I'm looking forward to. And then the thing everyone's looking forward to, and it could, come out by the time, everyone's seeing this, but Caleb Downs, 5-star safety, currently committed to Alabama. I don't have it for sure, but I am would almost be surprised if Caleb Downs is not in Ohio Stadium today. And, I think probably without this visit, it was a 5% chance. I would say it's at least a 50% chance that Ohio State can flip him with this visit. The relationships have been really strong with Tim Walton, Perry Aliano, Ryan Day, the entire staff, even since he committed to Alabama in the summer. I think he kind of needed to see a little proof of concept in Jim Knowles' defense. The way Lathan Ransom's playing this year, Ronnie Hickman, Tanner McAllister, I think is proving to Caleb Downs that he could be a high output player in this defensive scheme. So, I would look. I'm not saying anything's going to happen. I probably wouldn't expect a final decision until National Signing Day, but I think Caleb Downs is someone you have to look at as potentially being a part of this Ohio State class. There could be some other surprise visitors. There's many other great 2024, 2025, maybe even a few 2026 kids that will be in the shoe. We'll have full coverage on Buckeye Huddle, but I just want to end this by listing about a handful of guys I have on Commitment Watch. In the 2023 class, quarterback Lincoln Kienholz, defensive end Damon Wilson, even though I do think he'll wait. And then Joshua Mickens, I wouldn't be shocked if a quick decision came after this, although he could decide to wait for some in-home visits and then announce on signing day. In the 2024 class, in-state defensive end, Elias Rudolph out of Cincinnati Taft. I wouldn't be shocked if he leaves this weekend as an Ohio State commit. And same goes for Aaron Scott out of Springfield, 2024 cornerback. I think with both of those guys, it might be a matter of when versus if. So keep it plugged in to BuckeyeHuddle.com. We'll have full coverage of this massive recruiting weekend. It is going to be a big one.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Alex. This should be a very, 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 very big recruiting weekend. The quarterback from South Dakota coming in, that's potentially a big, big deal because Ohio State obviously needs a quarterback now for 2023 with Brock Glenn flipping to Florida State. Ohio State needs a running back for 2023 with Mark Fletcher decommitting. So, this is going to be a big weekend for 2023, but obviously for 2024, 2025, and beyond, lots of big names can be here. We will be down there on the field, Kevin, Tony, and I. Kevin and I'll be shooting pictures. Tony will be reporting back. We'll have lots of insight and information on who actually is here. Did Caleb Downs make the trip? All that kind of stuff. That's all going to be on the huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So great news. You have just a couple hours to sign up right now and make sure you're getting all that great inside information from Alex and Mark and the whole rest of our team. BuckeyeHuddle.com. It is $13. It's less than the price of a crappy chain store pizza, less than 50 cents a day. Just sign up today, give it a try for the next 30 days. Should be an active and a very active day on our board. Should be a lot of recruiting fallout over the next few weeks as we head into early signing day in late December. It is everyone is sort of anticipating this is going to be one of the more dramatic early signing day periods we've had since this whole thing, since they shifted the recruiting calendar with some flips and some drama and all that kind of stuff. So you will want to be at BuckeyeHuddle.com for all of that. Sign up today. Plus, it will make us happy. So something that something else will make you probably happy is a report from Pete Thamel. The availability report will come out in 5 minutes. ESPN's Pete Thamel reporting that Mayan Williams will play today. Something that will make you probably not happy is no Travion Henderson, no Jackson Smith-Njigba. This is what we've essentially been telling you to expect most of the week. Mayan Williams coming out, not playing last week against Maryland. That felt extremely precautionary. We kept hearing it was more of a precautionary thing. Rest him, bring Mayan back against Maryland, let him try and knock the rust off after several weeks off. When he didn't look right last week, you kind of figured, okay, he's probably not going to play. I'm not, I wasn't expecting him for Michigan. I'm not necessarily expecting him for a Big Ten championship game if Ohio State ends up there. But Mayan Williams, we were certainly expecting to play, and Mayan Williams, according to a report from ESPN's Pete Thamel, will play today. No Jackson Smith-Njigba. Again, that is really not a surprise. As we told you an hour or so ago, sort of the expectation we've had for a while is probably not until a potential college football playoff berth will you see Jackson Smith-Njigba. So that's not a big surprise. Obviously, Ohio State would love to have Henderson and Jackson Smith-Njigba back, but having Mayan Williams back, probably of those three guys, unless Jackson Smith-Njigba was going to be 100%, Mayan Williams is pretty much clearly to me that the most important of those three guys for Ohio State today. He is apparently going to be back. And he is the guy who I think maybe fits what Ohio State needs out of that running back position better than anyone else. Because what he does is he just kind of keeps churning forward. He doesn't dance. He just will kind of keep that pile moving forward. Ohio State does not need 19-yard rushes. If they get them, I'm sure they're happy with them, and that's fine. But what Ohio State needs is Ohio State needs to stay on schedule on offense. They need to be able to run the ball on first down and get 4 yards, 5 yards. They need to be able to run the ball on second down if they're in 2nd and 6, they need to be able to run the ball and turn that into 3rd and 2. If they're in 3rd and 2, they've got to be able to run the ball and turn that into 1st and 10. If they can stay on schedule and do that with the run game, that's going to help the offense kind of keep with the flow. That's going to keep the offense on the field. It's also going to potentially open things up downfield, because if Ohio State's able to run for 4, 5, 6 yards a carry during the course of the game, Michigan's eventually going to have to bring those safeties down, and that's when you potentially have some big plays opening up over the top. 2 receivers like Marvin Harrison, 2 receivers like Julian Fleming and Emeka Ibuka. We have some sirens behind us right now. Just that is the bus with the referees coming in right now. So hey, speaking of people that everyone hates, Tony Gurneman is back. Tony Gurneman and the referees. Boo.
That's totally uncalled for, Tom, to
besmirch the referees.
Yes, those hardworking men and women who are just here trying to make a living and not in any way trying to ruin anybody's day or make anybody miserable or remind anybody of their own faults. Just leave those people be. If you have to point your ire at somebody, please point it at Kevin.
Done. So
don't threaten me with a good time.
We are 2 minutes away from the availability report. However, ESPN's Pete Thamel, Tony, it may surprise you to learn, has reported that Mayan Williams will be back today. Jackson Smith-Njigba and Trevian Henderson apparently not playing today in a surprising twist that we definitely did not see coming an hour ago. Your thoughts?
My thoughts is I hope the next time Pete Thamel wants to get into an Ohio State game, he is not allowed to have credentials. Those are my thoughts, Tom.
Meta.
But not a surprise any of those. And if Mayan Williams, and I've been saying it, if he can run like he did against Indiana before he left the game, that's going to be a good sign for Ohio State, because he was seeing things well, he was running hard, he was picking up yards, and then gosh, you change the paces down and Hayden. I think that's a good mix.
All right, so we are. It is availability report o'clock, Tony.
20 seconds, 19 seconds, 18 seconds.
Do we need to get Ryan Seacrest here to count down for us?
I don't understand that reference. I'm a Dick Clark person. Thank you very much.
You were the Kathy Griffin of this countdown. This is
First refs and now Kathy Griffin. Fantastic.
Okay, it is availability report o'clock, and Tony, coincidentally, hey, we have it ready. How about that?
Yeah.
Tony, surprisingly, Mayan Williams is playing. Trevian Henderson and Jackson Smith-Njigba not playing. I guess the biggest thing here with those were 3 of the 4 names that we were kind of wondering about. The 4th one on there, Matt Jones, game time decision. Is that he's not playing, but they don't want to tell Michigan that? Is that he really is a game time decision? Because we've kind of seen it both ways.
Well, I think he's a game time decision because there are going to be the real question is who not on this list will not be playing, because that is always a fun game as well. And it's always a game that has an answer, because there's always somebody not on the list who isn't playing. And so is that the case this week as well? So they could definitely not have Matt Jones on this list and he wouldn't play, and it wouldn't be anything different than they've done in the past. But this is going to be, he'll be out there. We'll be, I think all 3 of us are going to be on the field looking at everything, and Michigan side as well, to see who is out there, who isn't. The subterfuge, the quest for how is Blake Corr moving? How is Matt Jones moving? Is Matt Jones even working with the ones? Is he dressed? All of these things. How's he walking through the stadium in his suit? Just overthinking everything and over-reporting everything as well, maybe.
Maybe. And we're the place where we will be over-reporting all of that is on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up today if you like information. If you like Ohio State football. If you like information about Ohio State football.
It's like BuckeyeHuddle.com.
So let's run through the whole availability report.
report just for you. Game time decision, Matt Jones, unavailable, TC Caffey, Trevion Henderson, Mitchell Melton, Jalen Pace, Evan Pryor, Bradley Robinson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Court Williams. All of those are long-term injuries except for Matt Jones and Trevion Henderson. So that's your availability report. I know this is not perfect for Ohio State, but it seems to me like if you were going to, if you had Ohio State, we were sort of assuming Jackson Smith-Njigba was not even a conversation. But if you were to choose, Ohio State can have one of these players back and healthy. I think Ohio State would choose Mayan Williams because of what he brings to that offense.
Yeah, that's the quick answer. That's the easy answer. And also it makes the running back room deeper. You don't just have to rely on Dallin Hayden. So yeah, he's a guy that sees things better than Trevion Henderson so far this year, has been more productive, is your number one running back, is one of your heart and soul leaders of that offense, gets the most out of the offensive line, isn't the pass catcher, but you know what, if all you get out of Mayan Williams is 25 carries and no catches, oh darn.
So with Mayan Williams back, I think that, does that change your thoughts on how this game plays out? Because it feels like having Mayan Williams and Dallin Hayden available at running back it gives Ohio State two different guys who I think are going to give them the type of running that they need. Matt Jones at guard, that is a little bit more of a concern. Is he healthy? Is he not healthy? He's obviously, if it's a game time decision, he's not healthy. So, is that if he's 75%, he doesn't play. If he's 80%, he does play. That I think is a little bit of a concern. But, do you think Ohio State can run for 4.5 yards a carry today with Mayan Williams and Dallin Hayden if you don't have Matt Jones in there?
I do. You started to ask if this changes perception of the game or whatever, if Mayan Williams can go. Mayan Williams, how many Big Ten games has he not played in or left? How many Big Ten games has he finished? Is it 2?
Yeah, he left Indiana, left Penn State.
So it's like, that's great that if he can play, can he finish? And really that's maybe the real question. That will tell me more, I think, if he can finish in terms of how well Ohio State does, how well they can run the ball. If he's there for the entire game rather than just a half, get in, get out, say goodnight to everybody, that's not what, I guess they'll take that if that's what all they can get from him. But I think it's important for him to be able to finish and for Dallin Hayden to be out there as well when they need him. But I don't think you want one half of one guy, one half of the next guy.
What'll be interesting to me is how this impacts what Ryan Day tries to do on offense. We have seen Ryan Day be not patient enough with the run. We have seen Ryan Day arguably be too patient with the run and talk about cracking the rock. And you wonder if the Matt Jones injury and potential compromise makes him tend towards passing, where are they more comfortable in pass pro than run? Are they, if you have Dallin Hayden in there and you have Mayan Williams in there, and if it's Enoch Famahi and they're more comfortable with Enoch Famahi in a run blocking than a pass pro situation, it feels like they have been much better in pass pro than in run blocking for the most part this year, at least in short yardage. I'm wondering how this impacts how Ryan Day approaches play calling in this game.
Well, there's been this talk about toughness the entire year. Do they come out and want to set the tone that they can run the ball? Every time I think this year I've said, I think they're going to start out throwing, they're going to throw to run, and they come out and run the ball and they run it well. So I think they're going to come out and throw to run, Tom. But no, I think, do you want, if you are the head coach and you have been talking about toughness, do you want to show your team, I trust you, let's go smash them in the face? Or do you know what, let's just move the ball, we'll eventually do some face smashing, but first let's just get the ball, let's get the offense moving a little bit, let's get out from the shadow of our own end zone.
Let's play an old message board game. Tony, first play of the game, first snap for Ohio State. This was always a fun, July on the message board. What's the first play call of the season for Ohio State? If let's assume Ohio State Ohio State starts somewhere around their own 25. Are you coming out and are you taking a deep shot on first down, or are you coming out and trying to run the ball? Because if you take a deep shot on first down and you don't hit it, well, then it's 2nd and 10, you're already off schedule. If you run it and you don't pick it up on first down, is that, oh boy, oh no, oh no?
Is this where you start out in the pistol and the first thing you do is run so that you set up the tendency that we only run out of pistol, and then sometime down later in that drive, it's a play action out of the pistol. So I think you run first, and if you get 5 yards, boom, you've already set the tone with just that one play. Now, if Michigan stops you, you've got two plays to get 10 yards and big whoop, and you go from there. And now your second throw, your second pass, or your second play is a quick throw to Marvin for 5 yards or something like that. And then now you're 3rd and 5. I think they run. Yes, Tom. My prediction: Mayan Williams between the tackles for 5 yards, tackled by Rod Moore with a candlestick.
I had the wrench, but it's all right. It's all right. All right.
Somebody was asking about illegal shenanigans for Michigan.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we are back. It's a little past the top of the hour now. We are, just to give you a sense for what's going on right now, the Fox pregame show is over there. The ESPN pregame show is on the other side of the stadium. The referees just showed up at the stadium just a few minutes ago. Michigan will be here coming in the gate behind us. That's usually right about 10 o'clock on the dot. They will be coming in here, and then Ohio State will come in the north gate, walking over from Skull Session. Skull Session starts right at 10. So the team will walk through there, give their quick speeches, walk over to the stadium. They're usually inside the stadium about 10:10 or so, and then it is game on, and it is time to get going. We will all have to be back inside the stadium around 10 o'clock as well, because we have all sorts of pregame stuff we've got to do. As you heard from Alex Gleitman earlier, it is a big recruiting weekend, so we have to get recruit pictures and report back on who's here and who's not and all that. So that's kind of the next hour or so here. But we have, if you guys want to throw questions in the chat, we can do some questions as well. Do we have questions?
Yes, from Omar Austin. Is quorum playing, and is it supposed to snow there today?
Is quorum playing, and is it supposed to snow there today?
I can answer one of those. It will not snow here today. Tom?
Yeah, and you've gotten every different possible answer on the quorum playing. I am still assuming he's going to play, at least give it a try. He will not be 100%. But yeah, there's been all sorts of conflicting information on what his injury is. Is it a bone bruise? Is it a meniscus thing? Is it a partial ACL tear? He can go. He can't go. He can go, but he can't cut. He can go, but he'll be compromised. Like you have gotten every possible variation of reporting on that this week.
Has the variation of he will be 100% been reported yet?
No, I have not heard that one. And then Donovan Edwards is another one where you've seen he's definitely out. He's definitely playing. I think you have to assume you're going to see both of them for at least some of the game. And then the question is more, how effective can they be? If Blake Corum can't, get that leg drive that he normally gets, how much does it matter that Blake Corum is playing in the game? Kevin just wanted to stand up and walk towards us. Okay, thank you.
Now I do. Also, another one from Omar Austin, also known as Hung Low, is Hung Low the best handle on the message board? Love you guys, go Bucks. Since he just gave us money, the answer is yes.
What is the best handle on the message board?
Tom Moore.
No, it's not Tom Moore. There are so many. All of them are the best, except for Tom Moore. There's the list of the best, then there's Tom Moore, the worst handle. Worst person? Well, who's to say?
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about that Michigan run game, because it feels like if Michigan can run the ball, Michigan can win the game. If Michigan can't run the ball, it just feels like this is a game where every year since 2002, the team that runs for higher yards per carry has won the game. Every single year. 2012, they were tied, and someone had to win, so someone won. But every other year, the team that has run for more yards per carry has won the game. Michigan ran for more yards per carry last year. Michigan ran for like almost 5 yards per carry more than Ohio State did last year. And they did it in 2011, they did it in 2003, and that's it. And if Michigan can't outrush Ohio State, it feels like Ohio State could win this game without outrushing Michigan. I don't think Michigan can win this game without outrushing Ohio State.
I don't know how they do it unless they're in order to do that, they would have to do stuff they have not done this season, and that is connect on the majority of their deep shots. I just, without the big hits in the running game and the consistency in the running game, the drives just aren't sustained. You can't ask J.J. McCarthy to pick up more than a handful of third downs through the air. You can say pick up as many as you can with your legs. That's not necessarily going to happen as consistently as maybe Michigan would like. They're going to keep an eye on him. The linebackers are going to keep an eye on him, and they're two pretty good linebackers with Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers. But McCarthy is an incredible athlete, and he is tough to bring down. But yeah, if they're not running the ball, then I don't even know how they keep it within a touchdown or 10 points if they can't run the ball. That's their identity. And how do you win this game without using your identity to get it done?
And J.J. McCarthy has not run the ball a whole heck of a lot the last few weeks. Season high in carries for him is 7, which seems impossibly low. This feels like a game where if you don't have Corum, if you don't have Edwards, you're going to see 12, potentially 15 carries for him. But I don't know if, I think that's something that loses its effectiveness after a while.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a little less gadgety than this, but it's like running a flea flicker. Like the first time you run a flea flicker, like, okay, wow, you caught us off guard, good for you. The third time you run a flea flicker, it's like, watch for the flea flicker, everyone, and it feels like the McCarthy run thing could be similar, where they don't want him going out and taking a bunch of hits. You've seen how battered Blake Corum has gotten, taking hits, 28 rushes. Quarterbacks, he can't just slide every time for 3 yards. He's got to try and be reaching the ball, going, and so you're putting yourself at risk for hits. And if he gets hit and gets knocked out of the game, they're in a world. Yeah, you're right. It's over because Davis Warren is the backup. A walk-on. Like if you're wondering, Cade McNamara surgery out for the year. So, you got a walk-on backup, and 2 years ago, Michigan was supposed to be coming in here with Dan Villari, who was like the third string guy. The Ohio State was a 30-point favorite. This is obviously a better Michigan team than that was, but this might be a better Ohio State team than that was too. And if you have no Blake Corum, if you have no Donovan Edwards, and you have no, you lose J.J. McCarthy at some point, at that point it becomes hopeless, and it just is name your score for Ohio State.
Yeah, well, the other thing with McCarthy is he puts the ball on the ground. So while you do want him to stretch plays out and keep plays alive, the more he carries it, the more likely he is to fumble something and get hit. But you talk about the lack of the effectiveness, losing the effectiveness. I could see him starting out like 4 of 60, and then at one point he's like 12 of 80, where they eventually catch on and they start to target him because he is the biggest running threat. So you go after the biggest running threat, and you just don't want the biggest guy, the best of those options to beat you. So if he ends up being the best of those options, you take him out and let C.J. Stokes beat you. Let Isaiah Gash, whomever. But I think that the more he touches the ball, that concerns Michigan. And so it's an interesting, tough position to put Jim Harbaugh in, to say, JJ, we need you more than ever, which scares the crap out of Harbaugh because of the way he puts the ball on the ground. How many interceptions should he have thrown this year? I think he has thrown 2 or 4 this year, and that number should be doubled at least, because we've seen some throws. Ohio State has to catch those today.
Yeah, and this is going to be a game where we have seen a lot of the ones that have been not quite interceptions have been, it's first and goal. Like, why are you throwing this pass? Throw the ball through the goalposts and move on to second down. The decision making has not been tremendous at all times from him, and you really get the sense that they don't entirely trust him yet. They don't trust him to put the ball, they don't trust him to make good decisions with throwing. as you mentioned, he's put the ball on the ground. C.J. Stokes, the true freshman, the third string running back, who could be the first string running back if Corum and Edwards aren't playing. He's put the ball on the ground a bunch this year. That's one of the reasons why. It's not that C.J. Stokes isn't a good running back. It's that I don't think they trust C.J. Stokes that much. And when C.J. Stokes was playing with the game on the line last week, it was like, oh boy, that's a real concern about Blake Corum, because you can tell, coaches can happy talk everyone all they want, but when you can look out, and it's the old recruiting, watch what they do, not what they say. If you're not putting a guy out there in crunch time, it's because you don't trust him. And they have tried to having J.J. McCarthy throw the ball in games recently downfield where they thought they could get away with it because they were going to win by 3 touchdowns regardless, and he hasn't been able to do it. So they have tried to give him their trust, and he has not earned it. And that feels like a real concern, because if he starts getting hit and you lose the running game, then you're running out of options.
Well, and what they may need to do is just take more shots downfield, because this is an Ohio State cornerback room that has given up some big plays. So if that's your best option, if you have to go 3 and out throwing deep, you've got to make some plays, and you've got to do it any way you can. But that trust thing with JJ, like, how many times have we seen them run the ball 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8 this year? And you don't trust your quarterback to throw 9 yards downfield, and so many of his throws are less than 9 yards downfield. So the answer is it's either 5 yards or 45 yards, because in between, that is danger, and so they don't like to do that, and they may have to do it today to win.
Well, and the fact that he hasn't thrown the ball that much this year, where he's throwing the ball for 180 yards a game, and it's a bunch of 13 for 22 kind of lines. He doesn't have the reps, and you wonder if Jim Knowles is going to be able to. They talk about changing the picture on the quarterback. You feel like C.J. Stroud has probably just watched more film, because he's had that extra year in college. He's watched more film. He's been thrown more passes. He's seen more coverages. People are not scheming up to stop the Michigan passing attack in the way they are to stop the Ohio State passing attack. C.J. Stroud has seen that picture change on him so many times. You feel like he's probably better positioned to deal with. You look, and what you see pre-snap is not what you're getting post-snap. He's probably a little better equipped to deal with that than McCarthy is.
Well, and yeah, I would agree with that. Just the experience does that. But by this point in the season, J.J. McCarthy shouldn't be a true freshman. And in Big Ten play,
he's a second-year player. Yeah, just sorry. I think I confused Tony with my phrasing there.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be like a first-year starter. Like he's an experienced guy at this point. But in Big Ten play, C.J. Stroud and J.J. McCarthy have thrown the ball almost the same amount of times. Like C.J. Stroud has thrown the ball maybe 7 more times. But what they do with those throws and what they do with those plays, I think, are vastly different, because J.J. McCarthy is keeping his vision, only goes so far. He doesn't look towards the horizon or anything like that to see what's down the road. He's just like, what's on my side of the corner here, where C.J. Stroud is looking to the next block and seeing more and taking more in, and I think able to handle more. I will be interested to see how well J.J. McCarthy does with the moving parts that have that have been played against Ohio State all season long. How often has Michigan faced that? I don't know, but we know Jim Knowles has stuff saved up for Michigan, because he unveils new stuff every week, but it takes a couple of weeks for him to get it established in practice. So we know there's something new that Michigan hasn't seen, that Ohio State hasn't done yet, and we'll see more, I assume, from the safeties, more blitzes there that they've done a little bit of late. But there'll be some things that J.J. McCarthy hasn't seen, and how does he? The other question is how does he handle the stuff he has seen? Because he's not. I mean, that's just as big of a question, because he still has to execute the stuff that they know they can do or have been able to do, which sometimes they execute, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I liked your line about not looking past. He doesn't look past the horizon. It's just the Michigan passing chart is just the short, intermediate, and just here be monsters. Yeah. It's the old-timey map thing where it's just like, here's the end of the world, and now that what's past there, I don't know. No receiver has ever gone down there to find out.
Surrounded by ice, it's like a flat, and it's just all ice, and then you can fall off of it.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Kyrie. It is. Yeah, and we say this, and then we've also said all week we're fully expecting J.J. McCarthy to complete at least one pass downfield, just because You see stuff in the Ohio State Michigan game you haven't seen all year. It just, will they be able to consistently do that? Probably not. So let's run real quickly through. Before we get to the bottom of the hour, and we'll kind of reset everything again at the bottom of the hour. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about best case scenario for Michigan, best case scenario for Ohio State. Michigan, let's say Blake Corum is healthy enough that he can play, and I mean, what is a realistic best case scenario for Blake Corum? 25 carries and 150 yards, something like that, and Donovan Edwards can also play, and he runs 8 times for 50 yards, and he has 2 catches for 45 yards or whatever. I mean that's probably about realistic best case scenario with as those guys both kind of banged up. What does the game look like if I just tell you those stats? Paint me the picture of how this game plays out.
Well, I think we saw Michigan rush for 300 yards last year, and it was an 8-point game in the fourth quarter. So if they're rushing for 200 yards, J.J. McCarthy throws another 50 in there, I think this offense is better equipped to keep up than last year's was. This Ohio State offense is better equipped to keep up. So I think we've seen throughout this year that if Michigan does what they did last year, Ohio State will be able to do more. But will it be enough? I think that's the real question. And that, to me, is that a 60-40 Michigan wins that? Is that a 70-30 Michigan wins that? If they're rushing for 250 in your scenario with Blake Corum playing that well and keeping the ball away from Ohio State, more importantly, and how many possessions does Ohio State have? How many scores are you getting out of those possessions? If they're rushing for 200 yards and whatever else J.J. McCarthy gives them, they're keeping Ohio State's offense on the sidelines. So, and now the 34 points that Ohio State may have scored now becomes 27 or 23 because of the immense pressure, and you're asking guys to make plays every single time because if you don't, we're going to lose. That's a lot of pressure.
Well, and if you're running for 250, 300 yards for Michigan, you're also probably shortening it from Ohio State has 14 times of the ball to Ohio State has 11 times of the ball, 10 times of the ball. If you have 10 possessions, then it becomes a red zone game. Because you're down, you get down to the red zone, you get down to the red zone half the times you have the football. Well, if you score touchdowns on those 5 trips, you got 35 points, you're probably still winning the game. If you score 2 touchdowns, or 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals, then it's 27 points. If you score 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals, then it's 23 points. And I think like 23 to 27, that's probably about where that line is for me. If in this scenario, it's a 27-23 kind of game, and it's like, which number do you have? That's kind of the deciding factor.
Well, and when possessions are being shortened, like when you go from 14 possessions to 11, kicking field goals in the red zone is how you lose. Like you have fewer possessions in the red zone, so you better get more out of them, because if you've got 14 possessions, you know what? We could kick 2 field goals in the red zone. That's the same as getting a touchdown, yada yada. But if now those possessions no longer exist, you need to go get that touchdown. You can't afford to kick field goals, and so that's where it's 4th and 2, and you don't pick it up. And now it's an Oregon type of game where you have so many empty possessions. But when you have so few possessions, a 3-point field goal can be an empty possession as well if you blow a red zone opportunity.
Well, and I don't think this is going to be, normally you think of a field goal as an empty possession in a game where it's North Carolina versus whoever this year, where it's like, 66-61. At that point, a field goal is basically a punt. This is a little different, but with so few opportunities down there, if you're giving up, if Michigan's kicking field goals, the longer this is a game, the better it is for Michigan. If this is a game with 5 minutes left, that's good for Michigan. So yeah, putting Ohio State, Ohio State just has to. If Ohio State has a lead, Ohio State is in great shape. This is not a service academy where they can't play from behind, but they would prefer to play from ahead and have you feel the pressure as they're kind of slowly grinding out drives.
Well, and it's good for Michigan that they came from behind last week, so they have this experience. J.J. McCarthy has this experience. He's faced it. It wasn't too much for him. So just having the team go through that and see their quarterback be able to do that gives them some confidence that they can do it. It's going to be a different environment to get it done, however. So but as Ryan Day said, you like to have that experience of adversity to draw back on to, I've done this before. I've been here before. There's some familiarity to it. So very good for Michigan that they had that game against Illinois last week and were able to overcome it.
All right, so now we'll flip the script. the best case scenario for Ohio State, and it feels like the best case scenario for Ohio State is they're able to run the ball, and they're able to pick up. If Ohio State can run the ball in short yardage, I think that's not particularly likely that Ohio State's going to be able to just pick up 3rd and 2 just sort of automatically on the ground. But if they can at least run the ball, and they're running the ball for 5 yards a carry, and you've got some stuff open in the passing game, and you get up, you stop. Michigan gets the first drive, punts it away. Ohio State goes down, scores. Michigan gets the ball on the second drive, punts it away. Ohio State goes down and scores. It's 14-0, with 3 minutes left in the first quarter. That then is like, J.J. McCarthy, this is the most important drive of your life. And, do you have a fumble there? Do you have if the run game's not happening and everyone in the stadium knows they have to throw the ball, that's where you have, that's where you potentially have a mistake. And, if it's 10-0, maybe you can get away with one more drive like that. If it's 14-0, if it's 17-0, if it's 17-3, that's when it's danger time for Michigan. And, we all picked scores with Ohio State in the, like 30-ish and Michigan in 20-ish range. There is a way this game ends up 45-10. I mean, that's not, it's certainly not what I'm expecting, but you can see it with some of the question marks. If Corum can't go, if Edwards can't go, if Michigan can't run the ball, if Ohio State is able, if Mayan Williams can run the ball, if Dallin Hayden can run the ball, if we're, and Michigan, we have not seen them get tested over the top very much this year. When they have, teams have been able to hit them from time to time. And you could see if this is a 180 yards and 3 touchdowns Marvin Harrison kind of game, you could, this could, to me, I can't see a scenario where Michigan blows out Ohio State. I can see Michigan winning, absolutely can see Michigan winning. I don't see a scenario where Michigan blows out Ohio State. I can see a scenario where Ohio State blows out Michigan.
Well, Tom, you keep saying this, and I keep going back to the 2014 Big Ten Championship game. If you would like to explain that to the fans.
Yes, it was the J.T. Barrett had broken his ankle at the end of the Michigan game, and Ohio State is going to play Wisconsin, and the line is 4 points, something like that. I think Wisconsin might have been favored in that game. And I tweeted before the game that the only result I could see just about anything happening, and the only result that would completely shock me would be a blowout Ohio State win. And they did win that game. I think it was close, but I don't remember what was the score.
It was 59-0, Tom. In fact, some would call that a blowout. You would not, of course, qualify that as a blowout.
I mean, fourth quarter, that's still anyone's game.
But yeah, the offensive firepower that Ohio State has, the defensive playmaking that Ohio State has, could combine for something that is special today. And we are talking best case scenario. Best case scenario, I also think maybe, do you see a J.J. McCarthy turnover in the first or the second drive to get him thinking, where you got some pass rush in there that gets him thinking. The more you can have him questioning everything before the snap, the better off for Ohio State. So I wonder if they throw some things at him early on, or do you save it when things are more important? That's the other thing. When do you spring stuff on J.J. McCarthy? Do you want him seeing ghosts, or do you want him to be scared at the end, the final scare? But the C.J. Stroud, they've been close a couple of times with Marvin Harrison deep. They hit those. Julian Fleming catches those. Emeka, I think we're going to see him over the middle have quite a big day. And with that kind of defense that Michigan plays, how much can they disguise with their coverages? How much can they confuse C.J. Stroud? And I'm sure he's been preparing, so it'll be interesting to see how he handles the new stuff. But overall, best case scenario, yeah, I see Ohio State much more capable of a blowout just because of the way their offense is designed.
Yeah, and when I say Michigan won't blow out Ohio State, I don't mean like 10 points. Like I could see Michigan somehow winning 31-20 or something like that. I don't consider that a blowout. I'm talking like a
62-39.
Yeah, 62-39 to pull a score out of thin air.
56-27.
Something in that range. Yes, yeah, three touchdowns kind of game. On Michigan's side, you've got. We need to talk a little about the wide receivers because the running backs have been okay. The running backs have been good, but they're not healthy. The wide receivers have been, like, you've seen some Ronnie Bell, you've seen some of of Roman Wilson. But, they're averaging, you look at their average per game, and it's like a bunch of guys averaging 30 yards per carry, or 30 yards per game, which is basically what you had against Maryland last week, where Maryland didn't have the guy averaging 70, 80, 90 yards a game. It's just a bunch of guys averaging 30, 40 yards. And then Maryland had a very effective passing game against Ohio State. I think, to me, though, in the passing game, the big story is Luke Schoonmaker, because they've had Colston Loveland, who's their third-string tight end, Eric Alder, starting tight end, out for the year. Second-string tight end Luke Schoonmaker has been out for a couple weeks. He is broadly expected to be back for this game. Third-string tight end Colston Loveland has come a long way and already sort of established himself. How many? Let's set the over/under for catches for Michigan tight ends at 8 catches and 82 yards and 1 touchdown. Give me the over/under on those 3 numbers.
Well, I was going to say 7.5 and go over. So 8 is about where I was thinking. But, that's Tom, I don't. 8 is a lot.
8 is enough, some might say.
So, most would say. I think 8 is good. What do we got going on?
Don't dodge the question.
I will not place that bet on 8. I will just steer clear. I said I would go over 7.5. I will not budge. I will not go over 8. What was the yardage? 120, 110?
No, 80, 87, 92, something like that.
With 2 guys, Colston Loveland, Luke Schoonmaker, they average around 10 or 11 yards a catch. So I would think, I could see them going 8 for like 88, something like that. And if they score 2 touchdowns, that might be the only 2 passing touchdowns. So I could see that as well. You said 1, so I'm not taking any of these bets except for maybe the over on the yardage.
Well, cowardly Tony might not be willing to take any action. Michigan apparently here for it. They're here early. They are here early. Michigan here a little early. Normally visiting teams show up about 2 hours before kick. Michigan here 2.5 hours before kick. Those are the Michigan buses down there. So that's a little surprising. You have seen years, Tony, where it took a little longer than expected for Michigan to get through security.
Maybe that's
so.
Why,
maybe that's the thinking there.
I guess they don't have COVID this year.
Well, we'll see if anybody comes out of the buses.
So yes, Michigan already here. I'm surprised.
They might be here to check the field to see if they want to play on it. Maybe they're getting here early. They're going to do some cuts on the field. Like, you know what? Unplayable. Sorry.
At Tony Gerdeman, at Kevin_noon.
The fans are booing the Michigan team as they arrive. Unbelievable. Classless.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Well, first of all, they're here very early, which is, to be here half an hour earlier than expected. You're not getting the full, I think everyone else probably was assuming the same thing I was, which is they're going to show up the same time everyone else does at 10 o'clock. So there's already a good number of people down there half an hour earlier than you were expecting them to be here. So you wonder how many people would have been here at 10 o'clock.
Not only are they happy Warriors, Tom, they are early Warriors.
They are punctual, very punctual Warriors. And, those are Michigan players getting their first look at Ohio Stadium, their first look at, some of these guys have played here before. Jake Moody and
Ronnie Bell. Is that why they're here a half hour early? Because this is their first time here.
Honestly, it might be. That might be a little bit of walkthrough, and you get in, and there's no fans in the stadium. The gates don't open until 10 o'clock, so you can go down the field, walk around, do whatever, and you watch guys walk into the stadium. They're all walking in with headphones on. They can't hear you. You can yell whatever you want. They can't hear you anyway. They will hear you later during the game, but they cannot hear you right now. It is going to be interesting to see how this team responds, because guys on the Michigan team, Mozzie Smith talked about having visited Columbus on a recruiting trip, so he's been to an Ohio State game in Columbus. But most of these guys haven't, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they respond, because they have not really played in what's the toughest road environment they've played in? Iowa this year, and Iowa's Rutgers, yes, and their third road game was
it Indiana? I don't know.
Yes, it was Indiana. So, Rutgers and Indiana, it has prepared you for playing in front of people wearing red. That's something, I guess. But, Iowa is the one tough game. And that is a place that's challenging in a different way than Columbus is, because in Iowa the fans are right up on you. The benches, there's no room behind the benches there. The fans are right there on your bench. It is right on top of you, and it's loud in there, but it's not Ohio Stadium for the Michigan game loud.
It wasn't too much for Casey Thompson on Friday, so we saw Nebraska go in there and handle it, and it's different, and it's been 4 years. It's going to be a lot of pent-up energy to let Michigan know exactly how people feel about them. So they've been saving all of this up for 4 years. And, I'll be in the press box. It's nice and warm in there. I wouldn't mind if there was a window cracked just so that we can hear the crowd. That's always better. That time I know you'll be on the field all bundled up because you're going to be so cold and so scared about the weather. But I'm interested to hear how sustained this crowd is.
Well, and I think pregame is going to be nuts. And then as soon as the game kicks off, some of it is dependent on what's happening on the field. If Michigan goes right down the field and scores a touchdown, especially if it's a
18
play, yeah, if it's like a Navy drive, 18 plays, 95 yards.
62 yards.
Yeah. 11 plays, 18 yards. If it's a real sustained drive, you can kind of suck the air out of a stadium. And you've been inside stadiums where you feel everyone going, oh no. I mean, if you remember the 1990s in Columbus, you have been in Ohio stadiums like that. If you have been in Ann Arbor in the last couple decades, you have been in stadiums like that. You have, like 2017, we were up there and it was just kind of there was just sort of this oh no. As soon as Dwayne Haskins led them down the field for that go-ahead touchdown, there was just sort of this oh I've seen this game before kind of feeling. And I still go back to the 2007 West Virginia Pitt game. I was at that game, and it was the most haunting experience where it was nuts. Like everything you've heard about a night game in Morgantown was all of those things, yes. And then it was just kind of like Pat White got hurt. Pat White broke his thumb, and Jarrett Brown just was not doing a whole lot as quarterback, and Steve Slayton couldn't get going, and West Virginia, I think they scored an early touchdown, and that was kind of it. And Pitt's just kind of hanging around, and there was just sort of this like, this can't possibly be happening. And so you've seen that, and if Michigan's up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, that's what that's going to be in there. And everyone is I think amped up right now. And I think if it's a close-ish game where Ohio State, if Ohio State's playing up 3 to 7 points constantly, it will still stay loud in there. If Ohio State's up 10 points, it's going to be very loud in there. If Ohio State's behind, that's where it's like, that's what it is so important for Michigan to get off to a good start in this game, because if Michigan's playing from behind, they're in trouble. If Michigan's playing from ahead, that's when we talked about what is it, 30-40% chance Michigan wins this game. That's how it happens if Michigan stays ahead and you take the crowd out of it.
There is an interesting difference between the buzz and the murmurs. When the buzz when things are going well, and the murmurs when things aren't going well, and it's just a different tone, and it can dictate how things go for a stretch before a big player, a big something changes to get the murmurs going back to cheers.
All right, so we are a little past the bottom of the hour now. We talked a little too long about West Virginia Pitt football. That's on me, sorry. Let's hit the availability report one more time, because I had grand plans to go till the top of the hour and wait till Michigan got here, and then Michigan's already here, so that
still have another package to
shoots
do?
that all the heck. Well, let's hit the availability report first. This is a game time decision for Ohio State. Matt Jones, right guard. That's a really interesting one to me, because game time decision, you look at that and it's like, do they just not want to give it away? Do they not want to? Because I feel like we won't. I don't feel like that's truly a game time decision. I think, the first time they're lining up, going through warm-ups, you're gonna, Matt Jones is either gonna be there or he's not. So this is a decision that has probably been made now and just hadn't been made at the time that this was released.
I think I don't think he's walking today, right? As a senior, I'm not sure if he is or not. I'm not sure if he's coming back, but you want to give these veteran offensive linemen as long to figure out if they are going to play today as possible. But I don't know that because it looked bad last week to where it was like they would be able to rule him out sooner. And so this may be an optimistic thing to me. Like, yeah, you know what? Probably not, but let's just go ahead and say your game time decision. If you wake up and, Mr. Miyagi is there and he's, doing something there to your foot. But, yeah, and if he can go, how long does he go? What's his effectiveness? So you have to weigh all of these things in. And how did Josh Fryer or Enoch Vamahi look at practice? How much did Matt Jones practice? Ryan Day said you don't necessarily need to practice to play in games, which is the exact opposite of what Jim Harbaugh said on Monday. He said if you can't practice, you can't play. Matt Jones being a veteran who has been able to be plugged in and play throughout his career, can he do that one more time?
And yeah, if it's not, Enoch Vamahi versus Josh Fryer is a very interesting conversation because it feels like they trust Fryer the most of any of the non-starters, but he has been playing tackle this year for the most part, not guard. So you would assume it would be Vamahi, but they have had the opportunity to play Vamahi because Matt Jones has been banged up and they haven't done it. So it feels like, okay, they don't totally trust him. That's going to be one of those real low-key, like we've spent all this time talking about Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and Ryan Williams and Travion Henderson. Matt Jones / Enoch Vamahi / Josh Fryer could be something that potentially decides this game. Guys who are unavailable today, Travion Henderson is kind of the most notable name on that list in terms of people who we, you 2 days ago you weren't sure about. He is not going to play today. Not a huge surprise. We've sort of anticipated all that all week. Jackson Smith-Njigba not playing today, not at all a surprise. I think we're both sort of expecting him probably college football playoff game. You might get him back, but probably not before then. Other guys unavailable, backup running back T.C. Caffey, defensive end Mitchell Melton, who's been out all year, Jalen Pace, tight end, Evan Pryor, linebacker. Evan Pryor, running back, he's been out all year. Bradley Robinson, the long snapper, and Court Williams, the safety. Bradley Robinson, the long snapper, is another one of those where it's like, well, they're missing the long snapper. How much of a difference could that make? And that's one of those things that doesn't matter until it matters. Mm-hmm. And, in a game where the talent is equated kind of game like this, that's the kind of game where Mason Arnold, who's filling in walk-on, he's filling in for Bradley Robinson, has done a perfectly fine job the last couple weeks. And as long as people continue to not remember Mason Arnold's name, that's probably a good thing for Mason Arnold.
Yeah, as long as his name is not mentioned during the game, Ohio State should be fine in that regard. But you're talking, he is the backup long snapper, so you're talking, a tenth of a second, 0.2 of a second, something like that difference, and that's all it could take to get a fingertip on a field goal that was supposed to win the game, something like that, because that's what it may come down to. That just the one little finger on the snap is a little bit too late. It's a little too high. Got to bring it down, and then it's a slow snap that you have to that's high that you got to bring down. Now you're talking multiple tenths of a second, and it's just little things like that. We've seen Ohio State block some punts the last couple of weeks. It's very, very important, and it's the hidden yardage, it's the hidden plays, the hidden big plays that you don't know about until it happens. You're like, why didn't anybody tell us about the long snapper?
Well, and that's also, if Michigan's going to win this game, we talked about, getting to 30 points for Ohio State. If Michigan also has a touchdown on a blocked punt, or Ohio State is a field goal that they're planning on kicking before halftime gets blocked, or gets blocked and run back for a touchdown, as we have seen in an Ohio State loss in the last 6 years or so. That's one of those things that kind of changes the calculus on all this stuff. We can sit here and go through and here's how many points they're likely to score. Here's how, and if they need to score this many points, and Ohio State needs to score this many points, and they need to be this effective in the red zone. If you add a touchdown on there, or you take a field goal off the board for Ohio State, that starts changing those numbers a little bit, and that changes the whole thing. So yeah, that is, again, we're talking tenths of a second here. They got. I was just there last week. I should remember the one where they took a delay a game on the 2-point conversion, and then they kicked the extra point and got it blocked and run back. I mean, that's, if something like that happens in this game, that almost cost them last week. If that happens in this game, that's a real big deal. So that's something to just sort of keep an eye on. That's one of the little stories. The Matt Jones injury we talked about is a bigger than you'd think story that is also not a huge not one of the big headline stories. The big headline stories, we just went through the Ohio State injuries. the big headline stories this week, though: Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. Let's get a final prediction from you, since we have heard literally every possible combination of it. One is playing, one isn't playing, the other's playing, the other one isn't playing. Both are playing, neither are playing. They're both playing, but they're compromised. One can't cut. Like, what? Tony, stop the madness. Tell us what's going to happen.
I think to expect Blake Corum not to play, how badly would he have to be injured to not play? But you know what? He didn't play in the second half last week. Played once, one carry, couldn't go beyond that. So it was a serious enough injury to keep him out of that game. He's had a week off. I expect him to play. It's a little bit like Mine Williams. How long does he play? How effective is he? I don't think he is going to be the Blake Corum that is going to be a Heisman finalist, that is the best running back in the nation. Does this mean he's one of the 10 best running backs in the Big Ten right now? That sort of thing. The Michigan offensive line is going to make every running back better. So even 85% Blake Corum, I think is enough. But without these big, if his long carry is only 17 yards, I don't expect his average to be 5.5. I expect it to be more like 4, because he's not going to be getting the extra yards as often as he does in the past.
And then Edwards is not the running back that Corum is in terms of the ground game. He's an effective running back and would certainly be the second best option they would have. He's got that broken hand or hand injury, and he's more. You think of him out of the backfield as a threat in the passing game, and you wonder, injured hand. How well is he going to be able to catch the ball? How well is he going to be able to hold on to the ball? Is he, if it's his left hand or it's his right hand, are you holding the ball in that hand, or are you holding the ball with your inside arm, or do you call plays so that the good arm is always the outside arm? I mean, there's a bunch of little stuff that could turn into bigger stuff there.
Well, remember when Ezekiel Elliott had a left arm injury, so he had to hold the ball in his right arm for basically in the entire season. I don't remember if it was 2014 or 2015, but even when it was his inside arm, it looked a little awkward. But that's what he had to do, and that may be what Donovan Edwards has to do. And if it is, go grab that football. You just pull at it, but first and foremost, bring the guys down. I think that's what the key will be. But if you can get a couple of turnovers on some injured Michigan running backs, take advantage of what Michigan has given you, basically.
Well, you've got injured Michigan running backs at the top, and I'm not expecting Corum to fumble. Corum's had pretty good ball security all year. Edwards with the hand injury, maybe. C.J. Stokes, J.J. McCarthy, we talked about that earlier. Both of those guys have had some ball security issues this year. If Ohio State is +2 in turnovers, is there a way Ohio State loses this game? Outside of, and then a miracle happens.
Right. No, if they're +2 in turnovers, I would. Even if they go scoreless in those turnovers, like they've kept Michigan away from points in those possessions. I think Michigan needs to do more with those possessions than Ohio State does. There's a way, but I mean, you're talking 80-20 Ohio State wins in that scenario to be +2 in turnovers. Now, if they turn that into 10 points, like 95-5 in terms of Ohio State winning that.
If this game, which is better for Ohio State? I mean, these are gonna be 2 tie scores. Which is better for Ohio State? 0-0 after the first quarter, or 14-14 after the first quarter?
0-0. I think. Well, yes, 0-0, Tom, because you are stopping Michigan. Your offense, you've seen the Ohio State offense pick up in the second and third quarter. So if they haven't scored in the first quarter, that's fine. That's the nerves, the pressure, that sort of thing. There's always the feeling out. 2 heavyweight fighters, feeling each other out. And so if you've got that, I think as many quarters as you can get Michigan without any points, that's a win for Ohio State. It's also a win for Michigan. But Ohio State is more capable of putting 21 points in a quarter on defenses. So I think 14-14 tells me that there are issues with the Ohio State defense, and that should scare everybody.
And, one of the things that we've talked about on and off this year is the second half and how good the Michigan defense has been in the second half. And they had given up 16 points in the third quarter all season long, and they gave up 17 to Illinois last week. Ohio State, I think, has given up 13 points in the third quarter all year, and something like that, I think.
Well, Michigan had given up 6 in the third quarter. It was Maryland that had given up 16 and they scored 17.
Okay.
That's one of my bold predictions, Tom. That's why you remember it so fondly.
Anyway, so is this one of the most famous games in the history of this series is 1969. Michigan takes a 24-12 lead into halftime in Ann Arbor, and no one scores in the second half, and it's 24-12. If no one scores in the second half of this game, is that a better thing for Ohio State, or is that a better thing for Michigan?
What is the score at halftime, Tom? If you could just let me know the score at halftime. I think Ohio State going scoreless in a half is bad. I think that's what I would say. For Michigan to be able to handle this Ohio State offense for an entire half would be bad. For an entire quarter, that happens. You may only get 2 possessions in a quarter, and you didn't score on your 2 possessions. That's no biggie. Going scoreless for a half is bad for Ohio State.
As we're kind of getting ready to wrap things up, it's 9:47 right now. It is, yes, we love you all, but batteries are not cooperating in the cold, so that's why we're wrapping up as we are. But just take a moment to reflect on this game, and the fact that there are times when in advance this is going to be a historical day, for good or for bad for Ohio State. This is going to be a day that people are talking about for a long, long, long time. I was at the 2006 game, and that had very much had the same vibe. You were at the 2016 game, which very much had the same vibe. This is a day where I think I saw a stat that this is only the 9th time that teams that are 11-0 played another team that was 11-0. And I read that and I thought, that seems like a lot for Ohio State, Michigan. It's like, oh no, that's for like the history of college football. Oh, okay. That an 11-0 versus an 11-0, I think regular season matchup was the stat. This is, it's easy to get sort of sucked into the minutia of all this stuff, but just this game is, we love covering this rivalry. This is one of our favorite weeks of the year, and but this game in particular, like, this is always a game we look forward to every single year. This game, though, there is so much on the line here that this is one of those, like, I know you at home are like biting your nails down to the bone, but like, take a moment to enjoy this day, because this is a day that for years and years and years you wait for a game this consequential, and here we are, and it's the greatest rivals in the history of sports in America, and they're playing for revenge and
Legacy,
perfect season and legacy and
everything. The stakes are higher this year than they were in 2006 and 2016 because of what it means for Ohio State, what it means for Ohio State if they lose, what it means for Ryan Day. There's no legacy things on the line for Urban Meyer in 2006, Jim Tressel in 2006, Urban Meyer in 2016. There's some personal things on the line here as well, and everything that could be on the line is on the line, and there are personal things on the line as well.
Yeah, and boy, the conversation around Ryan Day, if you have, you've got Mayan Williams back, you've got the weather you'd want. If you can't win this game, you're having conversations. And again, no one is saying Ryan Day is going to get fired if they lose this game, but you have, you're starting to have the whole next 12 months. You only get to do this once a year, unless they meet in the playoffs, in which case you might get to do this again. But you only get to do this once a year, so you only get a chance to redeem yourself for this once a year. So you've got to, if you win, you enjoy it for a year. If you lose, you got to live with it for a year. Talking to players, I think everyone in that Ohio State locker room is real sick of having to live with this for the last year. That might be one of the most consequential things on the line today.
Bunch of unhappy Warriors in the Ohio State locker room getting ready for this game, spending a year being told, are you tougher than you were last year? Because last year you weren't tough. Like, you would get so sick of hearing about what you aren't, what other people think you are, and now you have an opportunity to erase that, set your own narrative. That if you win this one, last year's game no longer exists in terms of your label, of that label of being soft. That's done. So when you would give everything, you've already given so much to get to this point. What's one more day?
So we are going to wrap it up right now. We do need to give our final scores. Kevin Noon, give us your score prediction.
I may or may not be in the shot. Here, I'll just stand in front of Tony. I like Ohio State's chances in this one. I think that when we went up to Ann Arbor and we heard them talking about the Happy Warriors, and we went back to Ohio State the day after, and they were talking about scars. I just think Ohio State is going to be the more determined team, and I like Ohio State's toughness being called into question throughout all the. You're very intently listening here. Toughness being called into question, and I think that when it's all said and done, 35-24 Buckeyes.
Oh, that is not correct. I went with the correct score prediction. I do expect them to be able to throw the ball. I expect them to hit a few of those. I did have to dial down my score prediction for Ohio State just because we sometimes get a little out of whack, and it's like, well, you see them, what Ohio State does against the better defenses, they kind of stall a little bit. So I went 34-24 Ohio State. I think 24 is a good number for Michigan because there will be a couple of big plays and they'll grind some stuff out. So 34-24, Tom, that will be the score. How wrong is your score?
I just wanted to make sure I had the correct score because I'd changed my mind about 17 times on this week. I went with 31-20. It feels like we're all kind of in that same basic range. And, you know, like I said, there is a way that if Corum plays and runs well and or Edwards plays and runs well, there is a way that Michigan and Ohio State bogs down in the red zone a few times. There's a way that this ends up with Michigan winning 27-23. There's absolutely a way I can see that happening. It feels like Ohio State has more paths to victory. It's like when they talk on election night that, well, you know, this guy is going to win this state and this guy's going to win this state, and so there's he just needs to win 4 of the other 9 and he'll win the presidency. It's the same thing for Ohio State. Like, so much needs to go right for Michigan. Michigan needs to be able to run the ball, and Michigan needs to be able to, you know, throw the ball downfield well enough to keep things, you know, to keep Ohio State honest, to be able to throw the ball more. And, you know, Michigan needs to be able to stop Ohio State from running the ball. Michigan needs to be able to stop Ohio State from throwing the ball. Michigan needs to be able to deal with the crowd. Michigan needs to be able to, there's so many other things. Just more stuff needs to go right for Michigan to win than it does for Ohio State to win. So that's why I've got the Buckeyes. But, you know, yeah, this feels like this is going to be a fun day. So I think this is going to be an entertaining and rather memorable day inside Ohio Stadium. We are about to head inside Ohio Stadium. We have to do our recruiting coverage and all that kind of stuff before the game. But make sure you sign up at BuckeyeHuddle.com right now. Do it right now. Not later. Now. Sign up. You get all the insider coverage of all the stuff we're doing inside on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And of course, make sure you join us after the game for what should be an extended post-game show. And it's normally a long post-game show. This will be an extended long post-game show. As soon as that clock hits 0, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified. Join us, and we'll do I'm sure there's going to be lots to talk about after the game, and probably lots of questions, and lots of either very excited or very unhappy people on the feed, or perhaps, since we've had a good mixture of Michigan and Ohio State fans, a little bit of both. So thank you guys all for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. Check out BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up today. That'll do it. We will see you guys after the game.